Chapter 6:15. Decari City's commercial streets had everything. Ron and Shea's horizons were broadened. They saw many things that Noah continent did not have. Clothes were considered cheap. The most expensive items were weapons, equipment, and jewelry. These were the real high-priced goods. Some even required black crystal coins to trade. Don't underestimate the small business street of Decari City. There were even sacred weapons in the weapon shop. Ron took a fancy to a sacred weapon. It was a water attribute magic staff called Water God's Blessing. The shop owner offered 15 black crystal coins. After some bargaining, Ron bought it for 13 black crystal coins. Even so, he still thought it was cheap. In the shops of Noah continent, a sacred weapon would cost at least 20 black crystal coins. Moreover, it wasn't even this good. This magic staff was naturally given to his wife, Kadena. Ron looked around and strolled around Shea. He had spent quite a lot of black crystal coins, but he still had more than 600,000 pesos left. Basically, Ron wasn't interested in flashy things like clothes. However, he couldn't afford the things he really wanted to buy. For example, he saw a sacred weapon composite bow called Night Shadow's Assassination Bow in another weapon shop. He wanted to buy it for Aurora. This bow had good attributes and even had an attack bonus. Unfortunately, the shop owner offered 25 black crystal coins. Ron couldn't come to an agreement and could only give up. Unknowingly, the sky gradually darkened. Ron returned to the meeting point as planned. One after another, the members of Pratz's team returned. They all had their own gains. Dora was a shopaholic. She bought a lot of clothes, jewelry, and the like. She also bought a refined priest robe that increased magic defense. She had spent all the black crystal coins she brought with her. She also didn't have much left. Millie was about the same. She bought a woman's breastplate that increased defense. Actually, she wanted to buy a sacred weapon the most. Unfortunately, she didn't have enough money on her. Pratz, Montego, Hill, and the others were about the same. They spent all the black crystal coins they had on them and bought the things they needed. On the other hand, Shan Chio and Spark were both drunk. Only God knew if they had been drinking since noon. When everyone saw Shea, they were all stunned. They saw a beautiful human woman standing in front of everyone. She was wearing a noble and elegant long dress. Her snow-white hair exuded a cold aura. Shea gently pulled her hair, her expression still cold. "Are you Shea?" Pratz came back to his senses. He didn't expect Shea to have such a huge change. "Shea, you're so beautiful. Did you buy these clothes at the tailor's shop?" Dora happily came over and gently fiddled with Shea's clothes. "Thank you," Shea said lightly. Dora chatted with Shea for a while before letting go. She quickly lost interest. To the experts of the sacred domain, strength was the only thing they cared about the most. "Let's go eat. My stomach is growling." Montego rubbed his stomach and said with a smile, "I heard someone promise to treat us today." Hill raised his eyebrows at Ron. What he meant was, "You know what I mean." Ron replied with a faint smile. "No problem." The two dwarves instantly became spirited when they heard the word eat. Hill laughed and said, "Ron, it's your treat. We have to drink to our heart's content. Don't think it's expensive when the time comes." "Alright, lead the way." Ron pushed him with a smile. Night fell. Ron and the others arrived at a brightly lit hotel in Decari City. The environment was elegant and the decorations were luxurious. Sitting in the lobby, one would feel as if they were in the middle of a mountain. There was a small bridge, flowing water, melodious saxophones, and a master pianist playing. Countless waiters in tuxedos walked back and forth with trays in their hands. They served the customers enthusiastically as if they were God. Cheers. On a huge rectangular table, 10 glasses of rum were clinking together. Everyone's face was flushed, and they had a relaxed and joyful expression as if they had completed a mission. Other than the dwarf Hill and Spark, who were addicted to alcohol, only Montego accompanied them. The others only took a sip. At this time, a waiter pushed a small cart over. There was a huge piece of meat on it. The meat was black in cross-section, and its skin was covered with a layer of white frost. Come, come, eat. Hill greeted them enthusiastically. This is the wild boar retreat from Altai Mountain. If you didn't make a reservation, you wouldn't be able to eat it so easily. As he spoke, he took a knife and cut it, giving everyone a piece. He was not tall enough to reach the table, so he could only stand on the chair. The dwarf Spark picked up his glass and clinked it with Pratz's. He asked, "Are you going back tomorrow?" "Yes." Pratz smiled and nodded. "We have our own things to do. We can't stay in the Shuelon continent for long." "What a pity!" Spark smiled. "It was a pleasure to work with you. To be honest, you are the most unique humans I have ever seen. I really hope we can work together again in the future." Everyone's face darkened. Everyone knew that this was impossible. In the Noah continent, mercenary teams that were formed temporarily might not meet again after parting, let alone a cross-dimensional team. "Let's eat." Hill silently pierced a piece of meat with his knife and placed it on the plate in front of Spark. His face was also a little sad. Everyone fell silent and ate in silence. They did not seem to be as excited as before. Instead, it was more of a reluctance before parting. The sharp knife cut a piece of meat. The meat was very tender, and the juice inside slowly seeped out. Ron cut a piece and stabbed it with a fork. Just as he was about to put it into his mouth, his body shook and his gaze froze. The door of the hotel was pushed open, and a group of people filed in. Needless to say, they were all here to eat. He did not know what race they were, but their faces were very strange. Their skin was dark and rough, as if they were covered with a layer of scales. In the Shuelon continent for nearly a month, Ron had seen all kinds of races. There were even more that he did not know. These races that he did not know were not the reason that attracted him. His gaze fell behind those races. It was a delicate and beautiful girl. Ron was sure that she was not a human. However, from her professional attire and energy waves, Ron felt something familiar. Necromancer. She was actually a necromancer. After being in the Shuelon continent for so long, this was the first time Ron had seen a necromancer. According to Dwarf Hill, necromancers were rarer than dragons in the Shuelon continent. Ron saw the young necromancer. Coincidentally, the young necromancer also looked over. Her expression was slightly surprised, as if she was also very surprised. After the young girl glanced at Ron, she immediately lowered her head. Her expression returned to normal, as if she did not see Ron at all. She followed those unknown races in front of her and silently walked to a table not far from Ron, and sat down. "Ron, what's wrong with you?" Millie, who was beside him, used her arm to gently touch Ron, who seemed to be in a daze. "Ah, nothing." Ron immediately came back to his senses. He smiled awkwardly and put the meat on the fork into his mouth. "What's wrong with you recently? I feel like you're always distracted," Millie asked with concern. Since Ron had saved her before, she became closer to Ron. "I'm afraid you saw a beauty," Shea said faintly. Since those people came in, she had been watching coldly from the sidelines. Naturally, she saw the young necromancer. Ron glanced at the table and saw the young girl sitting obediently on the chair. She did not say a word, as if she was thinking about something. Beside her, those burly men of unknown races sat down casually and talked loudly without restraint. The young girl did not seem to fit in with those races at all. It's just a necromancer. There's nothing to be curious about." Ron secretly laughed at himself for thinking too much. Necromancers were rare in the Shuelon continent, but it was not a rare profession in the Noah continent. Although Ron was a little surprised, it was not worth making a fuss about. Ron withdrew his gaze and no longer cared about the necromancer. Instead, he began to focus on destroying the food in front of him. After a while, the dishes were also on the table. Those unknown races began to eat in big mouthfuls. Some of them even drank wine. As long as we bring her back, we'll have done a meritorious deed. At this time, a voice entered Ron's ears. Ron's heart skipped a beat and his attention was immediately drawn over. Ron noticed that those races looked like beasts. Their mouths had densely packed teeth like combs that were incomparably sharp. They stood on their four limbs like humans. Their bodies were tall and sturdy, and the muscles on their arms and necks were tight. In contrast, their lower limbs were thin but slender, as if they did not have much strength. What race are they? Who is that necromancer girl? Ron's heart was filled with questions. As he was observing, he saw the young girl suddenly whisper something to one of them. That person said a few words to the others. One of them nodded, and the young girl immediately stood up. The young girl slowly left the table and moved her feet. That person also followed closely behind. What was surprising was that the young girl actually walked towards Ron's position. The young girl was expressionless, as if she did not even look at Ron. She walked past him with her head held high, passed by his table, and went straight ahead. Ron was feeling strange. At this time, he suddenly realized that there was something in his hand. He looked down and saw that it was a crumpled-up piece of paper. What is this? When did it appear? Ron's heart skipped a beat. He looked around, and when he saw that no one was paying attention to him, he carefully unfolded the paper ball in his hand. He saw that in the crumpled paper ball there were a few small words written with a pen. Chapter 6:16. Ron held the note in a daze. He did not know why the girl would give him such a note. Perhaps it was because he was a necromancer? What's wrong, Ron? Seeing Ron's absent-minded look, Platz asked with concern. Ron hesitated for a moment, then took out the note and said, "This was given to me by the girl just now." Everyone passed the note around and looked at it. Their faces were all stunned. Millie said, "What does this girl mean? Looks like she needs help." Dora looked at the note and said, "I just don't know why she chose you out of so many people. Maybe it's because I'm a necromancer too." Ron shrugged and said, "We're of the same profession. So, Ron, are you planning to help?" Millie, who was sitting next to him, put down her wine glass and said. Ron pondered for a moment, then slowly nodded. "Yes. All right, Ron, if you're willing to help, I'll consider helping as well." Millie blinked her eyes and smiled sweetly at Ron. Chapter 1. Thank you. But there's no need. I think I'll be enough by myself. Ron smiled and politely refused. Ron said this because he was confident. From the aura of those people, there were only 2 powerhouses of the sacred domain among the 10 of them. The rest were all masters and masters. Ron believed that he should be able to handle it alone. That doesn't seem to be a good idea, does it? Moore scratched his head. We don't know her identity, nor do we know what she did. It doesn't seem appropriate to rashly intervene, but she's of the undead. Since she asked me for help, I can't just sit by and watch. Ron's attitude was firm. Maybe she's being held hostage by these people? Ron, I advise you not to. At this time, a sudden voice interrupted Ron's argument. It was Hillman. He slowly put down his wine glass and stared at the unknown race at the table with a trace of worry in his eyes. He said in a deep voice, "Ron, do you know who they are?" "Who are they?" Ron asked. He could feel that Hillman, who had always been carefree, was deeply afraid of the race in front of him. "The Naga Sea clan." Hillman softly spat out a sentence. His small bean-like eyes narrowed slightly, emitting a trace of light. The Naga Sea clan is the most powerful force in the Shuelon continent. They occupy 4/5 of the Shuelon continent's ocean. As a superior race, they are extremely powerful. They are extremely arrogant and rude. Hundreds of countries and dozens of races in the Shuelon continent hate and fear this race, but there is nothing we can do. Hillman took a deep breath. This group of Naga Sea clan is not to be trifled with. Not only are they powerful, but they also have an unparalleled influence in the Shuelon continent. They are a marine race, and their navy is extremely powerful. They can land at any point in the Shuelon continent to attack them. When they fail, they will retreat to the ocean, so they can always be in an invincible position, and the races on the land can't do anything to them. They are all afraid of the continent. At this point, the necromancer girl came back, followed by the Naga Sea clan person. It seemed that she had just been escorted back on the pretext of going to the toilet. This time, she did not pass by Ron, but walked directly to her seat. Hillman withdrew his gaze and said solemnly, "Ron, I advise you to be careful. If you choose to fight, you may not be able to leave the Shuelon continent." Hillman's words made everyone silent. Even a cataclysm, who supported Ron, also wanted to retreat. She was wondering if she should get involved in this mess. Prats picked up a glass of wine on the table and drank it gently. He then put down the glass and said to Ron, "Ron, what do you think?" Ron lowered his head and thought quickly. He then raised his head, and there was a determined light in his eyes. "Maybe I'm too stubborn, but I don't know why, but I feel that this girl's origin is not simple. I have no reason not to save her." Prats was not surprised by Ron's answer. He just nodded slightly. "If that's the case, Ron, I have to tell you seriously." He paused for a moment. "If you really want to save them, we'll have to split up. This is also for the safety of the team. Ron, you can only act alone if you really make the choice. I can't risk the safety of the team with you." Prats showed his cards directly. He said to Ron seriously, "If you want to fight, you have to bear the consequences alone." As if he had expected Prats's answer, Ron smiled. "You don't have to say any more, Dean Prats. I understand." "It's good that you understand." Prats sighed in relief. "Then we can only go back first. Everyone, let's go." Cataclysm. Wait. As Prats was speaking, Shea interrupted coldly. "Dean Prats, you seem to have forgotten someone." Prats was stunned for a moment. He looked at Shea, who was wearing a noble dress. Shea slowly stood up and said coldly, "I am Ron's guardian knight. My duty is to protect him. No matter what, I want to be with him." Shea's eyes were unusually firm. Even if she knew how powerful the Naga sirens were, she still did not choose to retreat. Ron was a little touched. "It's okay, Shea. You go back first. I can handle it alone." Shea snorted coldly, rolled her eyes at Ron, and looked away. Her meaning was self-evident. Seeing Shea's firm attitude, Ron was a little helpless. Shea had always been like this when she was alive and when she became a Death Knight. Prats nodded. "Shea, if you want to stay, then stay. The rest of you, follow me back to the Noah continent. Everyone has finished eating. Let's part here." Prats stood up and Ron followed. Ron called the hotel waiter, took out Dassaw from his space bag, and paid the bill. This meal was not cheap. It cost 50,000 Dassaw. Of course, it was only a small amount for Ron. He still had hundreds of thousands of Dassaw left, so it was meaningless to take it back. After paying the bill, Ron and the others walked out of the most luxurious hotel in Disastrous City, chatting and laughing. Although he had chosen to stay, Ron did not reveal any flaws. He was playing loudly with his teammates while secretly looking at the necromancer girl at the table. Seeing them leave, the necromancer girl's face showed obvious disappointment. Her long eyelashes drooped, as if she was thinking about something. Soon, Prats's team walked downstairs. Before they parted, Prats said, "Ron, we'll be leaving first. Take care of yourself." "Okay." Ron nodded. "Be careful," Montegot said. "Those two from the sacred domain have powerful auras. They seem to be quite powerful, but I believe you can deal with them in a one-on-one situation." At this moment, Hill sighed and said, "Ron, I suggest that you reconsider it. As a former teammate, Ron, I have to advise you that this is not a wise decision," Hill said seriously before they left. However, Hill's words could not shake Ron's determination. He smiled at Hill and said, I know what I'm doing. After saying that, he politely bid farewell to everyone. Seeing that they could not persuade Ron, Hill and Spark looked at each other silently and took a deep breath in unison. Prats, Montegot, Hill, Moore, Dora, and Mill returned to the continent of Noah, while the dwarf warrior Hill and the musketeer Spark returned to their dwarf village. After sending everyone off, the sky was already dark. At this time, Shea had taken off her noble and elegant clothes and put on the undead's white bone battle robe, returning to the image of an extremely cold death knight. She said calmly, Ron, when do you plan to make your move? Anytime, Ron grinned, revealing a row of white teeth in the darkness. His smile was faintly sinister. Chapter 6:17. What do we do now? After Prats and the rest left, Shea asked. Ron thought for a while. Let's lie in ambush and wait for an opportunity to strike. It was already late at night. The originally bustling streets gradually became deserted. From time to time, 2 or 3 pedestrians would pass by. By the side of the road, there would always be people staggering and then falling to the ground with a plop. These drunkards would usually sleep until the next morning before waking up. In front of the restaurant where Ron was having his meal, a crow fluttered and stopped in front of the door. Its vigilant eyes kept looking around. Ron and Shea were lying in ambush at a dark corner of the street. The shadow of the magic lamp was just enough to hide their figures. Why do you have to save this girl? Is there a reason? Shea asked puzzledly. I don't know either. Ron shook his head. I don't know why, but I keep feeling an inexplicable sense of familiarity from this girl. Don't tell me you've taken a fancy to this girl. Shea said with a smile that was not a smile. Please, am I such a person? Ron mumbled unhappily. This is the Schwellon continent. Shea smiled and brushed the snow-white hair by her ear. Speaking of which, this girl is quite pretty. It's a pity she's not human. I wonder what she is? Chapter? What race? The two of them were very close to each other. Ron only felt a warm breath blowing on his head. His heart swayed and he reached out his hand and gently embraced Shea's soft waist. Shea blushed and said softly, Stop fooling around. Ron did not care. He hugged Shea even tighter and his hand gently moved around her waist. Shea blushed even more, but she still did not pull Ron's hand away. Instead, she gritted her teeth and endured with a red face. Ron smiled. He had already grasped Shea's pulse. Although the revived Shea had a cold face, her heart was still as hot as fire. Why haven't they come out yet? Don't tell me he's already gone. After a long time, Shea said faintly. Ron was shocked, and he quickly withdrew his hand that was constantly moving. It can't be, right? Shea laughed in her heart. She said that on purpose. Ron's hand became more and more restless, and it actually moved down bit by bit. This won't do. I have to send a spectre in to take a look. Ron muttered to himself. At this moment, he made a grabbing motion in his hand, and a smoke-like object quickly condensed. No need. They seem to have come out. Shea stopped him and said in a low voice. Ron raised his head in surprise and saw the Naga Siren clansmen walking out of the hotel with their hands on their shoulders. They were holding each other's shoulders and swaying as if they had drunk a lot. Except for the 2 strong people from the sacred domain, most of the others were sober. In the crowd, Ron saw the poor necromancer girl, who was held in the middle like a prisoner. At this time, a Naga siren brought 3 carriages. The carriages were very wide, more than enough for a few people to sit in. However, the horses looked quite strange. They had horns on their foreheads and fins on their back. They looked like fish. The necromancer girl was taken to one of the carriages by the Naga sirens. These guys have been drinking for so long. Shea frowned and asked softly. Should we do it now? No, now is not the time, Ron shook his head. Let's keep up first, and then wait for the right time. There are too many people here. It's easy to be exposed if we fight. This is not the Noah continent. We don't know the consequences of being exposed. Ron learned from Hill that the Naga sirens were very powerful. He couldn't take the risk. Even if it wasn't 100% safe, he had to be foolproof. Natural disaster. He had to choose a suitable time and place before he could make his move. In Ron's heart, he had already regarded these Naga sirens as dead people. As long as he found the opportunity, he was determined not to leave any of them alive. At this time, all the Naga sirens got on the carriages. The strange horses stretched out their limbs, and the 3 carriages followed one another. At this time, the crow in the sky moved. It flapped its wings quickly and pierced into the clouds like a sharp arrow. Ding-ling-ling. Ding-ling-ling. In the quiet night, the horses' bells were particularly harsh. The 3 carriages were running briskly on the quiet Bluestone Road. The secluded forest trail. This was the main road that connected Disastrous City and another big city. It led straight to the sea. This place was secluded and unusually quiet. The trees rustled as the wind blew through them. On both sides of the secluded forest path were smooth cliffs with jagged rocks of strange shape. It was as if monsters were charging at them, adding to the eeriness of the night. The carriage pulled by the strange horse passed through the secluded forest. It did not slow down at all and directly crashed into the path. The iron wheels were full of gravel, making a bumpy sound. Stop! After Cataclysm had been running for a while, a sound came from the leading carriage. The running horses slowly came to a stop, and the second and third carriages behind them also stopped. At this time, the door of the first carriage opened, and a strange man came out. He was one of the 2 sacred domain powerhouses of the Naga sirens. The Naga sirens of the sacred domain got out of the carriage. A pair of fish-like bulging eyes scanned the surroundings vigilantly, and a serious look appeared on his face. Stufoshik, what's wrong? At this time, the door of the second carriage opened, and a thin figure slowly got out of the carriage. She was the other sacred domain powerhouse of the Naga sirens. Her voice sounded like a woman. "Oh, Kenmel," the man named Stufoshik said. "I don't know why, but since we came out of the hotel, I have a feeling of uneasiness. It's like we have been targeted, really? Why didn't I feel it?" The woman named Oh Kenmel frowned and then smiled. "Stufoshik, aren't you being too sensitive? As long as you are a sacred domain powerhouse of the Snow Orchid continent, who doesn't know that this amphibious carriage is the symbol of our sirens? If they dare to have ideas about us," Oh Kenmel smiled slightly. "Just wait for your country to be destroyed. Oh Kenmel is right. All the forces in the Snow Orchid continent are afraid of the Naga sirens. The sirens have the most powerful amphibious navy in the Snow Orchid continent, and they can land at any point along the coastline. However, many countries in the Snow Orchid continent have long coastlines, so they are naturally controlled by the sirens. Some small countries were directly annihilated by the Oceanic Race's army." Stufoshik glanced around and did not find anything unusual. He slowly nodded. "You are right. Maybe I am thinking too much." He also agreed with O. Kenmel's statement. As the overlord of the Snow Orchid continent, their people were treated well wherever they went. No one dared to have ideas about the sirens. "What about the girl? Is she okay?" Stufoshik's eyes swept across O. Kenmel's carriage, as if he wanted to see through the carriage. O. Kenmel smiled. "She is fine. She is sleeping soundly." "Yes." Stufoshik nodded expressionlessly. "She is the person the princess wants. We must make sure nothing goes wrong," O. Kenmel chuckled. "This little girl is indeed cunning. It is impossible to guard against her. Unfortunately, she is too weak. It will not be easy for her to escape from my hands." "Let's go," O. Kenmel said. "Let's hurry to Yunza Sea Alley and then go to our capital, Gatalamandan, okay?" Stufoshik nodded. "Indeed, we have wasted too much time eating just now." As he spoke, he opened the car door and stepped in. At this time, his footsteps stopped. Through the corner of his eye, he saw a black figure. The figure stood on a protruding rock, his black robe fluttering in the wind. He held a staff in one hand and a white spear-like object in the other. It flashed with a strange cold light in the darkness. Suddenly, Stufosik felt a strong sense of danger. "Be careful!" Stufosik shouted and suddenly retreated. Boom! An explosion exploded on the first carriage, and the whole carriage was blown apart. The two seahorses died on the spot. Even the Naga siren who was driving the carriage was blown away. Sacred Domain Powerhouse. Chapter 6:18. Ron stood on one side of the cliff, holding the dragon bone staff in one hand and the white bone spear in the other. His expression was cold. "Who are you? How dare you attack the sea folk? Are you tired of living?" Okmer shouted. Her eyes were filled with killing intent. Ron did not reply. He smiled coldly and waved his right hand. A powerful aura suddenly appeared, bringing with it a strong gust of wind. "Be careful! Get out of the way!" Stophawk shouted. "Get down! Get down!" Oakmire lowered her head, and the white light brushed past her ear. She felt a burning sensation on her ear, and when she turned around, she saw a spear that was shining coldly in the darkness. "Not good!" Oakmer's face turned pale. She finally knew what the enemy was going to do. Boom! A loud sound rang out. The third carriage exploded with a huge sound, and the carriage was blown to pieces again. At the same time, it was set ablaze. Ron's target wasn't Oakenmire, but the third carriage. The Seafolk convoy was stunned by the sudden attack. They panicked. Roar! A long howl came from all around. It was like a painful wail from hell, echoing in the valley. At this time, a tall figure jumped down from the steep mountain wall. It was a huge skeleton. It was covered in heavy armor and held a shield and a long sword in its hands, constantly howling. The skeletons followed one after another. There were hundreds and thousands of them. They jumped down from the cliff and surrounded the three carriages. "Not good, we've fallen into an ambush!" Oakmer shouted. Stofos clenched his teeth. "It's a powerful being from the sacred domain. We're in trouble." Stofos was a powerful being from the sacred domain. He was not worried about trouble, but he knew that he had a more important mission to complete. "They're undead. They're undead creatures." Oakmer recognized the skeleton warriors at a glance. Stofos said, "Could it be that the girl's accomplice came to save her?" Oakmer said, "But when I caught her, I didn't find any accomplices." "Be careful, they're coming," Stoffish shouted. At this time, countless skeleton warriors charged at the three carriages. Some merfolk warriors also came back to their senses and drew their weapons to fight with the skeleton warriors. The scene was extremely chaotic. In the darkness, some sea race warriors who were caught off guard were hacked to death by the skeleton brave. Blood, flames, and sword light interweaved together to form a symphony of death. Roar! Seeing the brave sea tribe warrior lying in a pool of blood, Stofos was finally enraged. He hissed and opened his snake-like mouth to reveal his white teeth. At this time, Stofos's body suddenly changed. Kacha, Kacha! His body suddenly grew several times larger, and his silk clothes burst open. A powerful aura was instantly released, and the surrounding space was filled with bloody and depraved power. What? Ron was stunned. He saw that the Naga Sacred Domain powerhouse in front of the first carriage had completely changed. His whole body grew 3 times larger, and he became a 3-meter-tall giant with 4 long horns on his head. His body was covered with scales, and his legs below his waist were completely gone. Instead, they were replaced by a long tail. "What kind of monster is this?" Ron said to himself. "Is this the true body of the Naga sea race?" That's right, Stofos had completely transformed into a Naga siren. With a low roar, his hand flashed, and a 2-meter-long long sword appeared in his hand. He waved it at the skeleton hero that was rushing towards him. Swoosh! A bright light flashed, and the skeleton brave was split into two halves from head to toe. With just one slash, the armor turned into a cloud of black smoke and disappeared. Stovfos, who had transformed into a Naga sea race warrior, was almost invincible. The skeleton brave was like a piece of paper in front of him. His huge body knocked a few skeleton brave away, and with a sweep of his long tail, a few skeleton brave fell apart. Stovfos rampaged, and his huge body kept moving in the field. Soon, the skeletons were either dead or injured, and half of them were gone. Oakenmeyer immediately stepped forward to help, but he was stopped by Stovfos. "You take the girl and rush out immediately. I'll hold him back," Stovfos shouted. He stared coldly at Ron with his snake-like eyes. He knew that it was useless to tangle with these skeletons. The only way was to kill the summoner. Yes. Oakenmeyer also knew the seriousness of the matter. No matter what happened, completing the task entrusted by the princess was the most important thing. Oakenmeyer gritted his teeth and jumped onto the second carriage. Because the necromancer girl was sitting in the carriage, Ron didn't attack it. This further confirmed Oakenmeyer's guess that Ron must have come for the girl. The coachman of the second carriage was already dead. He was killed by Ron. Oakenmeyer kicked his body away, grabbed the reins of the seahorse, and rushed out like a wisp of smoke. Boom! The two seahorses charged forward with great momentum and knocked away the skeletons in front of them. They opened up a bloody path and quickly ran out of the secluded forest. Ron didn't chase after them. Instead, he calmly watched the carriage go away. At this time, his eyes fell on the Naga sea race warrior in front of him. It was a huge monster that emitted a biting cold aura. It was like a dangerous wild beast, causing people to feel intimidated just by looking at it. "Who sent you?" Stovfos stared at Ron and asked in a deep voice. Ron didn't answer. "Aren't you going to answer?" Stovfos grinned, looking even more ferocious in the dark night. "It doesn't matter if you say it or not, because from tonight onwards you will die." Ron still didn't respond. He looked at Stovfos as if he was looking at a dead man. Damn undead. Stovfos was finally angry. He roared, curled his long tail, and jumped up like a spring. He raised the long sword in his hand and slashed at Ron fiercely. The powerful momentum was like a mountain. Before the person arrived, the power had already blown a gust of wind. Ron didn't move. At this time, the corner of his mouth revealed a sneer. Boom! With a loud bang, a powerful force spread out in an instant. Ron finally collided with the Naga Sea tribe's powerhouse. Faster, faster! Oakenmeyer drove the carriage and sped along the secluded forest path. The iron wheels of the carriage made a crisp sound on the cobblestone path. As Oakenmeyer was running, her eyes suddenly opened wide. She saw a knight suddenly appear in front of her. It was a very beautiful woman. She wore thick armor and rode a black horse. Her hooves were burning with flames, and her long white hair fluttered in the wind. The female knight was looking at her coldly, her eyes as sharp as a sword. Not good. He has an accomplice, Oakenmeyer screamed in her heart. She suddenly tightened the horse's head, but it was too late. The female knight had already raised her sword high. Chapter 6:19. Wave Slash. The huge figure swooped down, and a gust of wind blew on the ground. Although the Nagas were huge, they were like flexible fish in the air. Facing the attacking Naga warriors, Ron took a step back unhurriedly. He raised the dragon bone staff high, and as the black mist condensed, a huge white bone shield appeared in front of him. The white bone shield floated quietly in the air like a guardian. Boom! A ray of light suddenly exploded, pressing down like a mountain. A powerful force shook the surroundings, and the place where Ron was standing was suppressed by the powerful force from above. It shattered with a loud bang, bringing with it a large amount of smoke. Wave-breaking slash was one of the unique combat skills of the Naga Sea tribe. The so-called wave-breaking slash was a combat skill with an indomitable momentum. It was the most suitable combination with the huge body of the Naga Sea tribe. Although the Naga Sea tribe was a marine race, their aerial combat was not weak at all. Huh? Where is he? When the smoke dissipated, Stofishk looked around and found that Ron was nowhere to be seen. He was shocked. So fast. Stofosik was surprised. He didn't even see how Ron disappeared. However, he saw an incredible scene in the next moment. Ron's figure suddenly appeared beside a Naga warrior, and the bone spear in his hand stabbed out. Poochie! A long bone spear pierced through the head of a Naga warrior. Blood spurted out from the Naga warrior's body like a fountain. The Naga warrior desperately opened his eyes wide. Ugly. The ugly body fell down with a loud bang. Ron looked back and smiled coldly at Stofosik. Bastard! Stofoshk was completely enraged. He roared and slashed down with his sword. Those skeletons seemed to have received an order as they rushed towards him in unison. Stofosik snorted and spread the long sword in his hand. Dozens of skeleton warriors were separated. These things are useless to me. The skeleton warriors were indeed not Stofosik's opponent, but there were many of them. They were like a wall blocking Stofosik's path. While Stofosik was entangled with the skeletons, another Naga warrior fell into a pool of blood. Most of the Naga warriors were only at the master level. When they met Ron, a sacred domain powerhouse, they were all killed in seconds. Ron was determined to make a move, so he didn't intend to leave anyone alive. He wanted to eliminate these weak fellows first. After a while, all the Naga warriors fell into a pool of blood. The forest path was full of corpses. They had all changed into Naga warriors, but they were not Ron's opponents. After Ron killed the last Naga, he wiped the blood off the bone spear as if nothing had happened. It was as if he had done something insignificant. There was no expression on his face as he said indifferently, "Now it's your turn." Stofosik's pupils shrank. The little necromancer in front of him killed all the Naga warriors in front of him. He simply did not put him in his eyes. Although he did not care about the lives of these Naga warriors, Stofosik was still angry. But when he faced the little necromancer, he could not help but feel fear from the bottom of his heart. Stofosik was so angry that he laughed. "Good, very good. How dare you? Since the rise of our Naga race to dominate this continent, no one has dared to challenge our authority for a long time." He waved the long sword in his hand and pointed at Ron. "Boy, if you have the guts, tell me your name. I will let you die knowing." "No need." Ron stared at him, as if he was staring at prey, and said coldly, "I don't need to tell the name of a person who is about to die because it is meaningless. Go to hell." Stofishk roared and twisted his body like a fish. His huge body rushed over, stirring up a gust of wind wherever he went. Wave-breaking slash. Stofosik raised the long sword in his hand and pressed it down on Ron with the posture of Mount Tai. Haze. Ron's body turned into a cloud of black mist and disappeared. Boom, the gravel exploded, and a large hole appeared where Stofosik's wave-breaking slash had attacked. At this time, Ron rushed into the sky at an extremely fast speed. Don't even think about escaping. Ron's dodge was called Cataclysm. Don't leave anyone alive. Stofishk took it as a sign of weakness. With a loud shout, he retracted his long tail and jumped up like a spring, following Ron into the air. Boom, 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 the two powerful forces constantly intertwined and collided in the air, erupting into beautiful sparks. The trees within 100 miles were swept up and thrown into the air, torn into powder by the powerful forces. The power that seeped out from the air was suffocating. Following an extremely bright flash of light, the two figures finally separated not long after. Ron still looked calm, but his clothes were slightly damaged. In sharp contrast, Stofosik was dispirited. Huff, 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 Stofosik gasped for breath. His body was already covered in wounds, and his outer armor was stained with blood. He stared at Ron with a pair of blood-red eyes, and there was a trace of confusion on his ugly and ferocious face. "Do you feel that your strength is decreasing rapidly in the battle?" Ron said calmly. "It's simple, because you are cursed by me." Curse? Stofosik's body trembled. He felt that his strength was rapidly flowing away like sand in an hourglass. The more intense the battle, the faster the loss of strength. At this moment, Stofosik finally felt fear. He knew that in his current state, it was impossible to defeat this small necromancer in front of him. Stofosik gritted his teeth and fled without looking back. Cataclysm! Haha! Do you think you can escape? Ron smiled. But he was not anxious at all. At this time, Stofosik, who was fleeing, felt a huge shadow appear, covering the moonlight in the sky and turning the earth pitch black. "What's this?" Stofosik was stunned. The next moment, his expression froze. He saw a huge bone dragon appear in front of him, blocking his path. Then, it opened its bloody mouth and spat out a corrosive dragon breath. Boom! Stofosik did not have time to react and was hit by the dragon breath. He screamed and his huge body fell from the sky. Large amounts of green smoke came out of Stofosik's body. The dragon breath from the bone dragon was still corroding his body. He struggled to get up. He looked up and saw that the small necromancer was already standing in front of him, coldly staring at him with a pair of emotionless eyes. Ron said expressionlessly. At this moment, he summoned a white bone spear with a swoosh, held it in his hand, and slowly approached Stofosik. Don't come over." Stofosik's eyes were filled with fear. At this time, he finally saw Ron's appearance with the help of the weak moonlight. You are a human?" Stofosik was shocked. It would be fine if it was another powerful race, but he did not expect it to be a human who attacked him. Aren't humans one of the weakest races in the snow orchid continent? When did they have the guts to attack the Aquarius? Are they not afraid of being exterminated? Stofosik's eyes widened. He could not understand. A weak race like humans would not have a grudge against the Aquarius because they were not worthy. "Yes, you can die now," Ron said coldly. He raised the bone spear and stabbed at the Naga powerhouse who had fallen to the ground. Bang! Ron's spear pierced through Stofosik's heart. "You!" Stofosik's eyes stared at Ron. At death's door, he laughed. "Haha, human, you are actually a human. I can't believe that I, the powerful Stofosik, would die in the hands of a human. Ha! How ironic, but you won't be able to escape. Today you killed me. You've already decided your death, not to mention your human country, even the entire human race won't be able to escape the fate of destruction. Our sea race will never let you go, never." Stofosik's eyes were filled with extreme hatred. His body twisted a few times in pain and then he died. "Is that so?" Ron pulled the bone spear out of the Naga powerhouse's body and said lightly, "What you Aquarius do to humans has nothing to do with me. Also, I forgot to tell you that I am not a human of this continent," Ron said and then turned around. At this time, he was slightly stunned and stared at one of the corpses of the Aquarius powerhouse. He actually pretended to be dead to escape this disaster. "If I hadn't used soul detection, I would have been fooled by him," Ron said to himself. He smiled and walked over slowly. As Ron's footsteps approached, the corpse suddenly moved and turned over. Don't kill me, Sir Human. I don't know anything." The Aquarius powerhouse's face was filled with horror as he said in a trembling voice. "I don't want to kill you either," Ron said indifferently. "It's a pity that you Naga sirens are too powerful. I really don't want to get myself into any trouble. No. Believe me. I swear in the name of the sea god. I promise I won't tell anyone." The surviving Naga siren's powerhouse desperately waved his hand, his huge body trembling. With a bang, the bone spear in Ron's hand pierced out mercilessly. The Aquarius powerhouse's eyes widened, and he twisted a few times before he stopped moving. Compared to your oath, I'd rather believe in a dead person because a dead person will never speak, Ron said lightly. Ron scanned his surroundings, and after confirming that no one was left alive, he nodded and put the dragon bone staff back into his interspatial bag. Ron knew that the Naga sirens were extremely powerful. This was also the reason why he wanted to kill them all. He had to deal with this problem very carefully and not leave any clues. Chapter 620. At this time, Ron's eyes fell on the weapon beside Stofos. He took it and saw that it was a sacred tool. My luck is not bad. This should be able to sell for some black crystal coins, right? Ron naturally laughed at the sacred tool and stuffed it into his space bag. But strangely, other than the sacred tool, the Naga powerhouse did not have anything else on him. Ron frowned. Strange, could it be that the Naga siren powerhouses don't bring anything other than weapons when they go out? Forget it, cleaning up the scene is more important. Ron shook his head and flicked his finger. A black spark fell on Stofos' body. After a while, Stofos' body made a sizzling sound and emitted a lot of white smoke. After a while, the huge body was completely corroded and turned into a pool of black water. After a few hours, the pool of black water would completely disappear without leaving a trace. Done. Ron smiled with satisfaction and was about to leave. At this time, a trace of reflection on the ground attracted his attention. Ron was stunned for a moment. He picked up the small thing on the ground and looked at it. It was a strange-looking ring. What is this? Ron looked at it over and over again, but he couldn't see anything. He tried to explore it with his soul sense. Then, he was surprised. This is the legendary space ring. Ron explored it with his soul sense. The space of this space ring was huge. Whether it was weapons, equipment, or healing potions, it had everything. Ron also saw some marinated fish, which seemed to be the food of these Naga powerhouses. This space ring is good stuff. Ron played with the small space ring. The space inside the space ring was even larger than his space bag. He accepted it with a smile and put it on his finger. Ron began to seize the time to destroy the other corpses, but unfortunately, except for the Sacred Domain powerhouse, Ron did not find any other space rings. It seemed that space rings were not common in Snow Orchid Continent. After doing all this, Ron stood up. At this time, he heard familiar, heavy footsteps. Shea had returned. Is it done? Ron smiled and turned around. What about the girl? Are you talking about her? Shea said lightly. She stretched out her hand and pushed a small figure in front of Ron. Ouch, you hurt me. The small black figure made a crisp voice, as pleasant as an oriole. It was very comfortable to listen to. It was a very delicate and pretty little girl. She was dressed in a necromancer's attire. A long black robe wrapped around her thin body. At this moment, she was constantly rubbing her aching forehead and gritting her teeth. The girl raised her head. In her watery eyes, there were tears of grievance. She looked very pitiful. She had 2 small braids and her face was a strange blue color. She looked abnormally pale. From her appearance, she was not human. Her strength was not strong. Of course, that was compared to Ron and Shea. The girl's strength was about the level of a grand magus necromancer. She was far from the sacred domain. It was no wonder that she was captured by the Sea Tribe and had no choice but to ask Ron for help. Ron looked at the girl and then at Shea's face. He asked, "Where is that person?" He was asking about the Naga Sacred Domain powerhouse who drove the carriage out of the secluded forest. Natural disaster. Chapter 620. Sacred Domain Nicole? Kill her, Shea said straightforwardly. That guy was very strong. If not for the fact that I had to protect the girl in the carriage, I would not have killed her so easily. Very good. Ron smiled and nodded slightly. He looked at the girl. This girl, with only the strength of a grand magus, was actually protected by two powerhouses of the sacred domain. It seemed that her identity was not simple. He just did not know why she suddenly asked him for help. However, Ron did not want to know the process of the matter. He was not interested in knowing. He said slowly, "Since the matter has been resolved, let's go." "Okay." Shea nodded, glanced at the girl, and then followed her. When the girl saw the two leave, she became anxious and shouted, "Hey, you, why are you leaving so soon?" Ron stood still, turned around to look at her, and said indifferently, "I think you're safe now, and we still have things to do. Goodbye." After saying that, he turned and left. Hey, wait for me." Seeing that the two of them were about to leave, the girl anxiously called out. Her voice was as clear and melodious as an oriole's. She quickly chased after them. "Hey, why are you guys walking away from each other? What else do you want?" Ron frowned, stood still again, and asked calmly, "If you weren't a necromancer and didn't ask me for help with the note, I wouldn't have bothered to save you. Now that you're safe, what else do you want?" "Necromancer." When the girl heard this, she was stunned for a moment. Then she smiled happily. "Hee, big brother, you are mistaken. I am not a necromancer, I am a necromancer." "Necromancer?" This time it was Ron and Shea's turn to be stunned. They looked carefully, and sure enough, the black robe the girl was wearing was very similar to a necromancer's. However, it was clearly different. Her robe was divided into two parts. The upper part was like a tuxedo, revealing a white flowery collar. The lower part was a long skirt that wrapped up to her ankles, perfectly showing off her petite figure. The girl was holding a long staff in her hand. The long staff was suffused with a trace of green and white light. It seemed to be a very expensive sacred weapon. "So this is a necromancer." Ron carefully looked at the girl in front of him and nodded inwardly. He and Shea had never seen a necromancer before. "So it is normal that you can't recognize her. Legend has it that necromancers can heal injured undead creatures and can also make them stronger." He wondered if the girl in front of him had this ability. "I don't know how to address this necromancer Grand Magus and this Death Knight sister." What surprised Ron was that the necromancer girl was very friendly. She smiled and took the initiative to greet them, closing the distance between them in an instant. "Ron." "Shea." Ron and Shea very naturally reported their names. "I am Nicole. Necromancer Grand Necromancer Nicole." The necromancer named Nicole smiled and said, "I am very happy to meet you. Thank you for saving me." Ron didn't like this little girl who was very friendly. Perhaps it was because it was his first time here and he didn't feel at ease with strangers in the Snow Orchid continent. "Miss Nicole, we are very happy to meet you." Ron smiled, which could be considered as a greeting. He immediately restrained his smile. "But if there is nothing else, we will be leaving." "Ah, you are leaving." When Nicole heard this, she couldn't hide the disappointment in her eyes. "Where are you going?" Ron thought for a moment and said, "There is no harm in telling you. We will be leaving this continent soon." He added, "We are not from this plane." "Is that so?" When Nicole heard this, she was dumbfounded. When she heard that the two of them were leaving, some of the plans in her heart completely fell through. "Necromancer Grand Necromancer." Nicole hesitated for a moment and raised her head. A pair of big watery eyes looked pitifully at Ron. She bit her lips. "I want to ask you for a favor. I don't know if it is possible." "Say it." Ron said calmly, "If I can help, then there is no problem. If I can't, then I can only say sorry." When Nicole heard this, a glimmer of hope appeared on her face. She smiled and said, "It is like this. I want you to help me find someone." "Find someone?" Ron and Shea looked at each other strangely. They didn't think that this little girl would actually want them to help her find someone. Chapter 6:21. Read_content_up. "I don't know." Nicole shook her head. I only know that he is in the snow orchid continent. Ron and Shea did not know whether to laugh or cry. She only knew that he was in the snow orchid continent and she wanted them to find him? They were not from the snow orchid continent and were not familiar with the place. Besides, the snow orchid continent was so big and they did not know where he was. How could they find him? I'm sorry, we really can't help you with this. Shea immediately refused. Nicole was anxious. Hearing this, Nicole became anxious. She grabbed Shea's hand and pitifully said, Sister Death Knight, are you really not willing to help? I must find him. Shea shook her head and sighed. Miss Nicole, it's not that we don't want to help, but we can't help at all. We are humans from another plane and are not familiar with the snow orchid continent. Perhaps you should find a familiar guide. Although I don't know where he is, I know that he has probably appeared in that place. As long as you take me there, Nicole said. Nicole said with a sobbing tone, Sister Shea, I beg you, I've always wanted to find that person. Looking at Nicole's pitiful appearance, Shea could not help but feel a trace of sympathy. She turned to look at Ron. Ron thought for a moment and asked in a probing tone, Miss Nicole, since you know that place, why can't you go yourself? Must you drag us along? It's not that I can't go, but, Nicole was a little embarrassed. She looked at the two of them, mustered up her courage, and said hesitantly, Actually, I'm also from another plane. I came here to find him, but, as soon as I arrived in the snow orchid continent, the people of the Naga Sea clan got the news from somewhere and directly sent people to capture me, until I met you guys. So, Nicole's voice lowered. She paused, lowered her head, and secretly looked at the two of them. Hearing this, Ron basically understood. It turned out that this little girl's purpose was to have the two of them be her hired thugs, protecting her all the way to the place she mentioned. This was originally a small matter, but once it involved the Naga Sea clan, it wasn't a small matter. Judging from the attitude of the Naga Sea clan experts towards Nicole, it was clear that Nicole's existence was very important to them. Agreeing to Nicole's request meant that the Naga Sea clan experts would cause trouble for them. To Ron, such a choice was extremely unwise. In the snow orchid continent, which was much larger than the Noah continent, the Naga Sea tribe could be regarded as an overlord race. Presumably, there were many strong people in the Naga Sea tribe. Thinking of fighting against such a powerful race, Ron felt his scalp tingle. He was only a small necromancer, sacred magus. In the snow orchid continent, where the powerhouses of the sacred domain ran rampant, his existence was nothing. It wasn't that Nicole didn't think of asking others for help. After she was caught by the Naga Sea tribe, she used a trick to sneak away. Then, she spent a lot of money to find a powerhouse of the sacred domain and asked for his protection. The powerhouse of the sacred domain agreed at first, but when the Naga Sea tribe experts came to find him, he was so scared that his legs went soft. He immediately knelt down and kowtowed again and again. The dignity and arrogance of a powerhouse of the sacred domain were all thrown out of the sky. He obediently offered Nicole with both hands, not even daring to fart. At this point, Nicole knew how powerful the Naga Sea tribe was in the snow orchid continent. At that time, she was completely desperate until she met Ron, a powerful necromancer, sacred magus. This was also the only necromancer of the sacred domain that she had met in the snow orchid continent. Nicole had an idea and decided to give it a try. While she was in the toilet, she secretly slipped a note into Ron's hand. At that time, Ron didn't make a move, which made Nicole a little disappointed. But tonight, the bloody massacre in the secluded forest rekindled hope in Nicole's heart. These two people were powerful and ruthless. They were the ideal bodyguard candidate. The hope of finding people in the snow orchid continent fell on them. In this way, Nicole had an idea about Ron. Sorry, we can't help you with this. Miss Nicole, I think you should find someone else. Ron thought about it again and again, but still refused. What a joke. The girl in front of him was the person that the Naga Sea tribe was looking for. If he went up to her, wouldn't he be courting death? Shea, let's go, Ron said to Shea. Shea looked at Nicole sympathetically and moved her lip. She wanted to say something, but in the end, she didn't say anything. She sighed and silently left behind Ron. Hey, you guys! Seeing that the two were really going to leave, Nicole was so anxious that tears came down. Without the protection of the sacred domain experts, even without the Naga Sea tribe, it would be difficult for her to move an inch with only the strength of a master. She might be dead on the street tomorrow. I won't ask you to help me for free. I'll give you money. Seeing that begging was useless, Nicole immediately tempted them with money. She said loudly, I'll give you money, a lot of money. Ron's footsteps didn't stop. He pretended that he didn't hear Nicole's words. What a joke, no amount of money was more important than their lives. Seeing that Ron and the others were still going to leave, Nicole stomped her feet anxiously and said a number that shocked them. 500 black crystal coins. Boom! It was as if thunder had exploded in their minds. Ron and Shea suddenly stopped, their faces full of extreme astonishment. 500 black crystal coins, what kind of concept was that? It must be known that Platz's team worked themselves to death in the Moon Lake, and each of them only earned a few black crystal coins. Even Ron, who earned the most, only earned 18 black crystal coins. These 500 black crystal coins, to them, and even to the entire Noah continent, was an astronomical figure. Ron and Shea looked at each other. Both of them could see the astonishment on each other's faces. 500 black crystal coins, 500 black crystal coins. This wealth was something that they might not be able to earn in their lifetime. Seeing that the two of them were somewhat tempted, Nicole was delighted. She rolled her eyes and said an even more tempting price. 800 black crystal coins. 800 black crystal coins. She increased the price by 300 black crystal coins in one bid. Who was this girl? Did she really have so many black crystal coins? At this moment, Ron and Shea could no longer maintain their calm demeanor. They turned around and walked back. Ron said with a cold face, Miss Nicole, do you really have that many black crystal coins? After bidding this price, Nicole felt deep regret. She understood the principle of not showing off one's wealth. It was only then that she recalled that the two before her were experts of the sacred domain. If they intended to kill and rob her, she wouldn't have the slightest ability to resist. However, Nicole quickly calmed down. She looked at the crowd with her round eyes and said with a smile, Hee, isn't it just 800 black crystal coins? I believe I can still take out such a small amount of money. If I can find that person, I will triple, no, even 5 times the black crystal coins won't be a problem. 5 times, that would be 4,000 black crystal coins. That was already an astronomical amount of wealth. Ron didn't even dare to think about it. These were black crystal coins, not cabbages. Nicole paused for a moment and calmly said, however, I don't have that many black crystal coins on me. I will give you the money after you complete the mission. Nicole was very smart. She knew that she could use a higher price to tempt them. If they completed the mission, they would receive 4,000 black crystal coins. If they wanted to kill her and rob her, they would only receive 800 black crystal coins. Between 800 and 4,000 black crystal coins, many people would wisely choose the latter. Ron pondered for a moment before he looked at Nicole and asked, Miss Nicole, what I want to know is, who are you? Why do you have so many black crystal coins? Nicole smiled. At this moment she finally realized that she had the upper hand. The two were tempted by the huge amount of black crystal coins. Nicole's identity was special. She naturally could take out 4,000 black crystal coins. However, she couldn't reveal her identity right now. Sorry, I can't tell you my identity. Nicole shook her head and said straightforwardly, this is also a mission. The reward is only this much. You can choose whether you want to accept it or not. Okay. Ron was speechless. Then, the second question. Ron thought for a moment and said, "Where is the place you want to go?" "Sorry, I can't tell you this either." Nicole shook her head again. "Unless you agree to accept this mission." To accept or not to accept, this was a problem. If they didn't consider the Naga Sea tribe, this was not a mission at all. In the face of such a huge reward, Ron was suddenly in a dilemma. Shea couldn't help but say, "Miss Nicole, it's not that we don't want to believe you, but can you really take out so many black crystal coins? Or are you just fooling us? 800 black crystal coins is not a small amount." Nicole was relieved to hear Shea's words. If they could ask such a question, it proved that they were not people who would kill and rob. "You want to prove it? No problem." Nicole breathed a sigh of relief and smiled. With a flash in her hand, she took out a large pile of black crystal coins and handed them to the two. "Here are 200 black crystal coins. It's part of the reward for you. It can also be regarded as a deposit. After you complete the mission, I will give you the rest." Ron took the black crystal coins and felt the heavy touch in his hand, as well as the power emitted from them. All of this told him that these black crystal coins were not fake. 200 black crystal coins were easily obtained. Ron and Shea looked excited. Their hands trembled slightly as they held the black crystal coins. These were all black crystal coins. If they were exchanged for gold coins on the Noah continent, ordinary people would not be able to spend them in dozens of lifetimes. Seeing Nicole easily take out 200 black crystal coins without batting an eyelid, Ron and Shea finally believed that Nicole was not fooling them. "Shea, what should we do?" In the face of such a huge amount of wealth, Ron couldn't make up his mind. He turned to Shea and asked. "I'll listen to you," Shea said softly. She smiled and said, "As long as you decide to take the next step, I will complete it with you." Saying this, Shea paused. "I have no regrets." Saying this, Shea's eyes flashed with a glimmer of bright light. After thinking about it, Ron still couldn't resist the temptation of such a huge amount of wealth. He was tempted. "Well, I'll take this mission." Ron took a deep breath and nodded. He carefully put the 200 black crystal coins into his space bag and said, "The mission is to escort you to a place on the Noah continent, and then the mission will be completed, right?" "Yes." Nicole's brows relaxed. She thought for a moment and added, "Of course, if I encounter any trouble on the way, you have to help me solve it. This is our duty." "Of course, there is no problem." Ron nodded and agreed. He thought for a moment and said, "Since we know that the Naga Sea clan may come to trouble us, of course we can't go with great fanfare. Everything has to be done secretly." Ron thought that the Snow Orchid continent was so big and there were so many races. As long as they found a place to hide, even if the Naga Sea clan had great power and great means, it would be impossible for them to overturn the entire continent. Even if Ron couldn't beat those Naga Sea clan experts, it wouldn't be too difficult for him to escape. Thinking of this, Ron decided to take the mission. "I have no objections." Nicole raised her hand and said, "As long as you take us to that place." Shea said, "Well, can you tell us where that place is now?" "The ancient ruins of the Death Impasse." Read _link_up. Chapter 622. Xuelon Continent, Gatali Mandan. Gatali Mandan was known as the Sea City. The entire city was built along the sea. Most of the city was immersed in the sea. The houses were strange tall buildings. In front of each house, there were layers of stairs that slowly revealed themselves with the tide or ebb of the sea. There were no streets in the city. The houses were only connected by bridges. Below the bridges was the blue sea. People came and went in boats, shuttling back and forth in this strange sea world. Of course, to the sea tribe, ships were a little redundant. These amphibious creatures could hold their breath underwater for 2 to 3 hours. However, this was only the treatment of the commoners. Some of the nobles of the sea tribe liked to ride on luxurious and magnificent ships to show off their noble status. This used to be the most remote and barren place in the Xuelon continent. But now, it had become the largest metropolis in the Xuelon continent. This was the capital of the Sea Clan. In a few hundred years, the Sea Clan had built this place into the center of the world. Legend had it that a few hundred years ago, the Sea Clan was still an extremely inferior race. They were eaten by other races. Because their meat was unusually delicious, the people of the Sea Clan were once the prey of the fishermen of the Xuelon continent. Just a few hundred years ago, the Sea Clan rose like a meteor. The dazzling light shocked the entire continent. The Sea Clan was also divided into Naga, frogmen, murlocs, turtles, and other races. They united and miraculously established a country. Just as the people of the Xuelon continent were mocking this country made up of inferior races, the Sea Clan had countless strong people overnight. This shook the entire continent. What was even more frightening was that these strong people of the Sea Clan began to set foot on the land and began their journey of conquest. Chapter. No one could resist the mighty army of the Sea Clan, especially the elusive fleet of the Sea Clan. It was a nightmare for all the land countries. They could seal off the coastline and land at any point. It was impossible to guard against them. In the war between the land races and the sea races, countless strong fighters were killed, and the powerful sea race won the final victory. For the first time, the land races of the Snow Orchid continent lowered their heads to the sea race, and wholeheartedly acknowledged the position of the sea race as the overlord. No one hunted the sea tribe anymore, and their delicious meat would no longer be served on people's tables. The once inferior race had suddenly risen to become the strongest race in the Xuelon continent. However, the sea tribe believed that they could never adapt to the land, so they returned to the sea. They built countless cities by the sea, and Gadalamandan was one of them. In the center of Gadalamandan, there was a huge crystal palace. This palace was made of precious translucent crystal stones, occupying dozens of square kilometers of sea area. The translucent crystal stones reflected the blue sea water and the rising fog, forming a beautiful rainbow in the sky. In the center of a room in the side hall of the crystal palace sat a beautiful Naga woman. She had turned into a human-like state. A pair of slender jade feet were crossed at will. Her beautiful face had a delicate taste. Her hair was slightly curled, and a pair of beautiful eyebrows were gently raised. There was an extremely dissatisfied expression on her face. Vitala, the princess of the Naga Sea Clan, was listening to the report of a guard. In addition to Vitala, there were more than 10 Sea Clan people standing in the hall. From the aura they exuded, there was no doubt that they were strong people of the sacred domain. Beside Princess Vitala stood a proud young man in a purple robe. He was also a strong Naga Sea Clan person. At this moment, he was also listening seriously. What? You said that the girl went missing near Dekri City? How is that possible? After listening, Vitala stood up and lost her composure. Didn't I send Stefasik and Kenmel to bring the girl back? Where are they? Vitala said loudly. Her nervousness showed that this was not a trivial matter. Missing. The fat guard shook his head. I'm sorry, Your Highness. The investigation team received news that Stefasik and Kenmel have been missing near Dekri City for several days. After a preliminary investigation, the investigation team came to the conclusion that they have been attacked. Attacked? As soon as this was said, the entire hall buzzed with excitement. How is that possible? Someone actually attacked the Sea Clan. How dare they? Quickly find out who did it. The experts of the oceanic species whispered and discussed in low voices. Without exception, their faces were filled with anger. It had been a long time since they had heard news of an attack on the Sea Clan. It had been decades since the last attack on the Sea Clan. The rising Sea Clan had a vengeful personality. Every land expert who provoked the Sea Clan did not have a good ending. The merfolk Princess Vitara's body trembled, her white slender hand tightly grasping the corner of the coral chair, trembling slightly. But, Catastrophe. Chapter 622, Calamity. The princess is furious, seeing the strong anger in her heart. Who did it? Vitala asked with gritted teeth. Her beautiful face was covered with veins, looking abnormally ferocious. We don't know. The guard shook his head and replied. From the investigation of the scene, the attackers were very professional. Their goal was very clear. They were targeting Stefasik from the start and set up an ambush in a secluded forest not far from Decory City. There were traces of battle at the scene. They were very cautious and destroyed the corpses after killing our experts. As a result, we couldn't find any corpses at the scene. The first 2 seahorse carriages were destroyed, and 2 kilometers away, we found another seahorse carriage. This means there might be more than one attacker. The guard held the report in his hand and said a lot. He was just reading from the book, and there was not much new information. What about that girl? Princess Vitala didn't care about the life and death of the 2 sacred domain experts. What she really cared about was that girl. That girl was extremely important to her. The girl's body wasn't found at the scene. She was either killed or taken away. The guard tried his best to keep calm because he could see that the princess' expression was getting worse and worse. According to the investigation team's estimation, the possibility of her being taken away is very high. The guard added, Possibility? Princess Vitala's eyes were like sharp swords as she stared at the guard and reprimanded, Don't talk to me about these useless things. Estimate, guess. How many days has it been? You spent so much time and found out that these things are meaningless. As the leader of the investigation team, this is what you gave me? Results. I want results. Do you understand? I don't want to hear your excuses. Vitala said loudly. She was in a very bad mood. The guard's forehead was slightly sweaty. He began to look nervous. He took out a small handkerchief and wiped it gently. At this time, the purple-robed young man next to Princess Vitala snorted and took a step forward. Your Highness, the investigation team is too incompetent. The procedures were impeccable, but the results were not satisfactory. Anyone with a discerning eye can see that someone must have taken the girl away. What's the point of investigation? After investigating for so long, this is the result. If the investigation team's leader is only this capable, then don't occupy that position. The purple-robed young man's words did not give the guard any face at all. Faced with the purple-robed young man's aggressiveness, the guard's fat face turned red. Unfortunately, he had no way to refute. Fleet, forget it. Vitala waved her hand and said, The urgent matter isn't who is responsible, but how to find that girl. I admit that I was negligent in this matter. I thought that it would be enough to send 2 sanctuary powerhouses since she's just a little girl with master-level strength. Unfortunately, I didn't expect an accident to happen. Linley sighed. To everyone's surprise, Vitala took the initiative to take responsibility. Your Highness Princess Vitala, this is not your fault. The purple-robed young man called Fleet comforted her. Your decision can't be said to be a mistake. It's just an accident. It can happen at any time. Vitala's beautiful eyes flashed again and again, as if she was thinking about something. After a long time, she sighed. I'm thinking. Who dares to attack our convoy? Stefasik and Auchinmel are both sacred domain powerhouses. In other words, the attacker must be someone above the sacred domain. From the scene of the attack, it must be someone at the peak of the sacred domain. Vitala shook her head. I've combed through the entire continent's sacred domain powerhouses, but I have no clue. There are many people who can do this, but there's no motive. Fleet's heart skipped a beat, and he said, Could it be a sacred domain powerhouse from another dimension? It's possible. Vitala's beautiful eyebrows knitted together. If that's the case, it'll be more difficult for us to find him. There are so many powerhouses from another dimension coming to the Shuelon continent every day. How do we know who did it? Seeing Vitala's expression of deep thought, Fleet's heart ached. He had been in love with Vitala for a long time. As the descendant of a high-level powerhouse of the sea race, there had always been calls to matchmake them. It was just that Vitala's father, the Emperor of the Sea, had never agreed, so it had been put aside until now. Fleet could not help but ask, "Your Highness, that girl is just an undead from another dimension. Do we need to go through so much trouble? Or does that girl have a special identity?" Fleet did not understand why Princess Vitala took this matter so seriously. "You don't understand." Vitala shook her head. "I can't reveal that girl's identity yet, but what I can tell you is that capturing that girl was an order from the higher-ups, an order from the higher-ups." When Fleet heard this, his face was full of astonishment. No wonder it was an order from the higher-ups. In that case, everything was logical. If the higher-ups had personally given the order, not to mention Princess Vitala, even His Majesty, the Emperor of the Sea, would not be able to withstand this pressure. "I've decided." At this time, Vitala stood up with a swish. "I'm going to find Father now, and through him, invite Lord Holy Priest Gama to help investigate this matter, and capture that girl as soon as possible to give the higher-ups a satisfactory result." Chapter 623. Secluded Forest Path during the day. The secluded forest path had lost its usual tranquility. It used to be a deserted place, but it was unusually lively today. A division of the Seafolk army came ashore from the Cloud Swamp Sea Alley and surrounded the entire path. This division of the Seafolk army was led by Princess Vitala. There were more than 8,000 of them, and they came ashore in a mighty manner. This frightened the local garrison, and they did not dare to stop them. At the same time, they quickly reported to the kingdom they were in. The entire palace was in chaos, and they thought that the Second Land and Sea War had arrived. Fortunately, this division of the Seafolk army was not here to start a war. They did not offend anyone along the way and went straight to the secluded forest path. The secluded forest path was bleak and desolate. The trees were tilted left and right, and traces of battle could be seen everywhere. The Seafolk army stood densely, and the tallest were the Naga warriors. They were 3 meters tall and held long weapons in their hands. They were covered in esoteric scales, and the muscles on their arms bulged. They looked extremely thick and strong, and their lower bodies had long tails. Other than the warriors, there were also siren magicians. They also had human heads and snake bodies, and they held long magic staffs in their hands. Their bodies were smaller than the warriors. The most numerous were the frogmen warriors. These strange marine creatures looked like giant frogs. They stared with round eyes, wore armor unique to the seafolk, and held long swords and shields in their hands. Although they looked funny, their strength was not to be underestimated. These frogmen generally had the strength of a master when they reached adulthood, and a few of them could even reach the master level. They were the most important part of the Seafolk army. The frogmen warriors jumped up the high cliff. Inside the cliff, the frogmen looked around with their round eyes, constantly vigilant of the surroundings. "Reporting to your highness, Stafoxic and Okenmul went missing here." A guard came over and reported. Princess Vitala's face was ashen. She gritted her teeth fiercely. "How dare they attack my personal guards? Damn it!" Beside her, Fritz's eyes flashed. He bowed slightly and said, "Your Highness, please calm down. I believe that the murderer will definitely make them pay the price for what they have done." Vitala's face looked better, and he nodded gently. His gaze swept across the surroundings, and finally landed on Frit. He asked, "Frit, can you see anything?" Frit shook his head and said sincerely, "I'm sorry, Your Highness, I didn't see anything." Princess Vitala nodded and sighed. "Since that's the case, please ask the respected Gamma Master to come out." The door of a luxurious seahorse slowly opened, and a pair of skinny hands slowly stretched out from inside. He gently grabbed the edge of the carriage door frame. An old man from the sea race slowly walked down from the carriage. He was as thin as a bamboo pole, and his old face was full of wrinkles. It was hard to tell how old he was, but he looked like he was about to die. Master Gamma was the only holy priest of the Sea tribe. He was already several hundred years old. Although he was known as the Sacred Domain, he did not have any combat power. His ability was in prophecy. Grand Master Gamma. Gamma Sacred Priest. Seeing Gamma walk down from the carriage, Vitala and Frit immediately went up to him. They held Gamma's skinny arms with both hands, and their faces were full of respect. You are Vitala. Master Gamma's eyesight seemed to be very good. He recognized the princess of the sea race at a glance and smiled. Grand Master Gamma, it's me. Vitala smiled. Gamma Sacred Priest had a high status in the sea race. Even Ocean Emperor Poseidon was polite to him, and Vitala was no exception. The last time we met, you were only a girl of about 10 years old. In the blink of an eye, you have grown so old, Gamma said with a smile. His drooping eyelids lifted slightly. What's the matter, my dear Vitala? You asked your father to persuade me to come out. What do you need this old bag of bones to help with? Yes, Grand Master Gamma. Vitala does need your help. Vitala nodded and said sincerely, my guards once found a little girl. Unfortunately, she was kidnapped. She is right here. Because the kidnapper was a strong man from the Sacred Domain, he did not leave any traces. Now, I don't know where they are. I have no choice but to ask for Grandmaster Gamma's help. I believe that with Grandmaster Gamma's ability, it will not be difficult to find them. That's a mission given to you by your superiors, right? Before Vitala could finish, Gamma said with a smile. Vitala was shocked. She looked at Frit and said in confusion, Grandmaster Gamma, you know about it? I don't know anything. Gamma shook his head and pointed at his head. I guess. If it wasn't a mission given to you by your superiors, you wouldn't be in a hurry to ask me to come out. The Cataclysm. Chapter 623. Wargamma's Advice. Vitala bit his lips and said, Yes, Master Gamma, it was indeed the higher-ups who asked me to do it. They told me that this little girl had arrived at the Shuolan continent and asked me to find her, control her, and hand her over to them. Gamma raised his eyelids. Didn't you ask why they were looking for this little girl? I did, but they didn't tell me the details. Vitala said, I only know that the little girl has something that the higher-ups want. They ordered me to ask her to hand it over. Gamma was silent. He did not show any support for Princess Vitala, nor did he help her. Vitala's heart sank when she saw Gamma Master's expression. The task from the higher-ups was pressing down on her, but she had no clue about what to do. She was in a difficult position. However, if Gamma Master did not agree to help, Vitala could do nothing. No one in the entire Sea tribe, including the King of the Sea, dared to disrespect Gamma Master. Master Gamma, please help Vitala. I have already reported the news of finding the little girl. Now, the higher-ups are constantly urging me to hand her over. If I don't hand her over, you know, the higher-ups are pressuring me. The consequences are not something that my father and I can bear. Even the entire Sea tribe can't bear. Vitala's tone was full of pleading. She had no choice but to ask her father to ask Gamma Master for help. If she had asked Gamma Master herself, she would not even have been able to see him. That's right, Master Gamma. You were able to accurately predict the rise of the Sea clan hundreds of years ago. I believe that this matter shouldn't be difficult for you. Please help Her Highness with this natural disaster. Frit also tried to persuade Gamma. Gamma said, It's not that I don't want to help, but I don't want you and the Sea tribe to get too involved in this matter. This involves a battle in another dimension. The consequences of some things are just as serious. Gamma Master sighed after he finished speaking. Fine, fine. Since it is the higher-ups who want to help, I will help you. All these years, without the support of the higher-ups, the Sea tribe would not be as glorious as it is today. It is not too much to help them with something. Seeing that Gamma had agreed, Vitala and Frit were overjoyed. Vitala said happily, "Thank you, Master Gamma." Gamma Master smiled. "Actually, when I was talking to you just now, I have already used my ability to find the answer. I also know who kidnapped the little girl." "Who is it?" Vitala and Fleet asked in unison. Gamma Master shook his head. He took out a crystal ball from under his robe and handed it to Vitala. "See for yourself." Vitala took the crystal ball. Through the core of the crystal ball, an image faintly appeared. It was the scene of what happened in the secluded forest that night. She saw her subordinates, Stofos and Okenmel. She saw her convoy being attacked by a dragon. The first and third carriages were attacked and set on fire. Then, Stofos and the other party fought fiercely. Vitala's guess was right. The person who ambushed them had the strength of the sacred domain. The battle between the two parties was not clear. There were only some fragments. Vitala could only see the strong person piercing a spear into Stofos' body. At this time, a face appeared in the crystal ball. It was a very young face with black hair and black eyes. The determined face was filled with a murderous aura. Vitala was shocked. "A human? What?" Fleet's face was full of shock. "Your Royal Highness, what did you say? It was a human who ambushed us? Ha ha! To think that it was done by the human race. No wonder we couldn't find the culprit even after such a long time. It turns out that it was the human race that we had never thought of and hadn't even listed as a suspect." Flames flickered in Frit's eyes as his face was filled with malevolence. "It seems that some humans are tired of living. Your Royal Highness, we have to teach them a lesson. Otherwise, these lowly people will still have the guts to go against us." Fleet said. "Teach them a lesson?" Vitala sneered. Her eyes were filled with murderous intent. "They will all die." At this time, Gamma Master's voice sounded. Vitala, look carefully. That human. What power did he use? What power? Vitala was stunned. Then, she looked at the crystal ball. At this time, she saw clearly. Her eyes suddenly widened. "Undead?" "That's right. Undead." Gamma Master nodded and said, "If I'm not wrong, the girl that the higher-ups asked you to find is also an undead." Vitala's breathing became hurried. Gamma Master continued, "Don't forget, they are all from the main plane. That's why I said that some things, especially the battle between the higher-ups, are inconvenient for us to intervene." Gamma Master's voice became low. "Vitala, you have to understand that our sea tribe looks very strong, but that's only in the Shuelon continent. In the real main plane, our strength is not ranked at all. Without a doubt, our higher-ups are very strong. However, they are not invincible. They also have enemies. One of these enemies is the undead. Don't intervene in the battle between the higher-ups and the undead. This is my advice to you and also to the Sea Tribe." Chapter 624. Silence. Gamma Master's words caused everyone to fall silent. This time, even Frit did not say anything. That's right. As the most powerful Naga Sea clan in the Shuelon continent, they were just a small reptile among the great forces in the main plane. Getting involved in these great forces was courting death. Vitala smiled bitterly. "Maybe, but what can we do?" She paused slightly, and her eyes instantly regained their clarity. "Frit, pass down my order," Vitala said in a deep voice. "Immediately draw portraits of these two people and the little girl. Post them in the streets and alleys of the Shuelon continent. At the same time, send a copy to all the countries and forces in the Shuelon continent. Ask them to help find them. If they are found, we will reward them heavily." "Yes, Your Highness," said Fleet in a loud voice. Gamma sighed slightly. This time, the Naga Sea clan was completely tied to the chariot of the higher-ups. If the higher-ups failed to fight against the other party, the entire Sea clan would become the target of the enemy's venting. The undead was not to be trifled with. Unfortunately, Master Gamma did not know that Ron's undead was not the same as the undead, he said. This was not a premeditated action, but a last-minute rescue. This is Gatali Mandan? Ron stood on the bridge of a huge building in Gatali Mandan, constantly exclaiming. What a great idea it was to build a city on the sea. The blue sea was connected to the sky, and the square-shaped houses floated on the water, connected by bridges. Under his feet was the blue and clear sea water. If he was lucky, he could see colorful fish swimming around. This is the city of those annoying guys. Facing such a beautiful scene, Nicole did not catch a cold. She frowned and her face showed disgust. She did not have much affection for the Sea Clan who had been holding her hostage. At this moment, the attire of the three people had changed greatly. They could no longer see the attire of the Necromancer, Death Knight, and Necromancer, but three ordinary civilians. They were covered with a large blanket, thick fur on their backs, and hoods on their heads. From head to toe, only a pair of eyes were exposed. It was said that this was the attire of the Maori people in the Shuelon continent. They could disguise themselves as Maori people. Hearing Nicole's complaint, Ron smiled bitterly. We have no choice. We have to go to the place you said. This is the only way. Do you think we want to come to this place? After killing the sacred domain powerhouse of the Sea Clan, Ron and the others could only hide themselves and disguise themselves to prevent the Sea Clan. Fortunately, as the employer, Nicole had no objections. Nicole's face was a little better. She sniffed gently. In short, I just hate these guys. At this time, Shea asked, By the way, Nicole, why did the Naga Sea Clan come to catch you? Nicole shrugged. To be honest, I'm not too sure about this. I was caught by them as soon as I came to the Shuelon continent. It wasn't that she didn't know, but she was very clear that everything the Naga Sirens had done was related to that thing. When she was caught by the Naga Sirens, they also interrogated her about the whereabouts of that thing. Of course, the Naga Sea Clan was just cannon fodder. Nicole was very clear that the forces behind the Naga Sea Clan really wanted that thing. Ron and Shea looked at each other. From Nicole's face, they could naturally see that she was not telling the truth. However, they did not say anything. Since they had accepted the mission, they would naturally complete it well. Anyway, just send her to that place. Don't worry about her. Ron thought silently. Just as the three of them stood on the bridge and were about to leave, they heard a rude voice. Hey, you guys, come here. Ron, Shea, and Nicole looked over and saw a ferocious fishman waving his hand not far away, shouting something loudly. It was a dock. The dock was full of ships. Some workers were busy loading the ship. It seemed that they were preparing for a long voyage. You're calling us? Ron pointed at his nose and asked in a strange tone. Yes, it's you guys. Get over here. The fishman said fiercely. Ron and the other two looked at each other and hesitated. They did not know whether they should go over or not. Let's go and see what he called us for, Shea said with a frown. Ron nodded and walked towards the fishman with Shea and Nicole. Damn, I asked you guys to come over, and you guys are so slow. The ferocious-looking fishman grumbled and turned around. He immediately put on a smile and said to another fishman, Master, I have found them. Should we let them work now? Just find them. Why are you still asking me? The fishman master looked at Ron and the rest and waved his hand in disgust. Go. Hurry up. We still have to board the ship. Yes, master. The fishman who looked like a butler bowed deeply. Although he was reprimanded by the master, he still had a smile on his face as he watched the master board the ship. After the master left, the butler glanced at Ron and the other two, and his face returned to its arrogant expression. He snorted coldly and said, What are you guys still standing there for? Move these boxes onto the ship. You are talking about us? Ron opened his eyes wide in shock, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. When did I agree to help you move things? What? When the fishman's butler heard this, His eyes immediately widened. Ron was even worried that the huge eyeballs would fall out because of excessive staring. "Aren't you guys Maori? Inferior race. If you don't move them, do you want me, the fishman master, to move them?" The fishman butler put his hands on his waist and pointed at Ron and the rest as he spoke loudly with a hint of arrogance. It turned out that the Maori race was one of the inferior races in the Shuelon continent. This race did not have strong fighting power. In this world where the strong ran rampant, in order to survive, they could only do the lowest level of manual labor to support themselves. This was also the reason why the fishman butler asked them to move things. He treated the 3 Maori as manual labor. The surrounding workers were also Maori. They looked at Ron and the rest blankly, then turned their heads and continued with their work. When Shea heard this, she immediately turned her face. She was about to make a fuss but was stopped by Ron. The fishman butler's voice was very loud and attracted the attention of everyone around. Through the corner of his eye, Ron also saw several Naga sea patrollers around them poking their heads out of the water and looking at the 3 of them with vigilant eyes. The patrollers were one of the guards of Gatalamandan, equivalent to the guards of other cities. If they made a scene, things would be difficult to deal with. Ron thought to himself, "Move, I will reward you guys with desos." Seeing that the 3 of them were not moving, the fishman butler urged. "Forget it, let's move it," Ron said. He secretly cursed his bad luck. If he knew that the Maori were manual labor, he would not have disguised himself as a Maori. It would have been better to dress up as another race. Seeing that Ron nodded, Shea could only suppress her anger and began to move the things. Nicole did not say a word and lowered her head to take the boxes. The storm passed just like that. When the onlookers saw the fishmen reprimanding the Maori, they suddenly lost interest and turned their heads to look at the things they were interested in. The Naga sea patrollers also slowly sank into the water and swam away. There were not many things, only a total of 10 boxes. The boxes were not heavy and an ordinary adult could easily lift them. In fact, the fishman butler could do these things alone, but he did not want to do it himself in order to show off his identity. Ron and the other 2 worked together and finished moving all of a sudden. 10 or so boxes were neatly placed in a corner of the cabin. "Well, you guys did well." The fishman butler's face finally showed a satisfied look. He smiled and said, "Very good, you can go down now." "Okay." Ron wiped his sweat and was about to leave when Nicole did not move. She stretched out her hand and said, "Give it to me." "Give what?" the fishman butler asked. Nicole said, "Of course it's a reward. Didn't you just say that? After we finished moving, you gave us a few desos as a reward. Now that we're done moving, where's the money?" When he heard about the reward, the fishman butler's face changed. He only wanted to get a few Maori to work for him for free. Who would have thought of giving a reward? Go, 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 when did I say that I would give a reward? All of you, get off the boat. The fishman butler scolded as he pushed Ron and the rest off the boat. When these words came out, the anger in their hearts rose. Although Ron only wanted to avoid trouble and never thought of any reward, the fishman butler's attitude was infuriating. Nicole shouted loudly, "You're cheating. You said that you would give us a reward. If not, why would we help you move your things?" Nicole, who had a lot of money, naturally did not care about a few desos. She could tell that the fishman butler did not want to give them a reward at all. She was angry and made a scene. Nicole's voice was very loud and attracted the attention of the guests on the surrounding boat. When they saw that it was a Maori girl asking the fishman butler for a reward, many of them smiled knowingly. Hee, this little girl is quite cute. She actually dares to ask the fishmen for a reward. It's good that she's not killed. A person said with a smile. Maybe she's too young and doesn't know what's good for her. She's just a lowly race. Who does she think she is? Another person laughed. Ha ha ha, the people on the other boats looked over. They were watching the argument between Ron and the rest as if they were watching a show. A few Maori who were working nearby looked at the boat and shook their heads regretfully. Bargaining with the fishman butler, wasn't that asking for death? It was a pity that such a young girl was going to die. The fishman butler would not show mercy to the fairer sex. Forget it, let's go. Ron reached out and pulled Nicole. He did not want to cause trouble and attract the fishman butler's attention. He felt a little guilty about what he had done. In a foreign plane, it was not wise to cause trouble. Ron was trying to keep the peace, but Nicole was still unwilling to let it go. She waved her fists and shouted, "I don't care." He clearly agreed, but he didn't pay for the work. What kind of logic is that? Being mocked by the surrounding onlookers and the little Maori girl in front of him being unforgiving, the Murloc butler could no longer maintain his composure. Seeing that the soft approach did not work, he decided to use the hard approach. He gritted his teeth and with a swoosh, a bright light flashed. The Murloc butler fiercely pulled out a long sword and shouted angrily, "Stop talking. Are you going or not? If not, I'll kill you." The fishman butler's intention was to scare her. According to past experience, the Maori were very afraid of death. As long as he scared them, they would obediently leave. However, he was wrong. With a whoosh, a snow-white shadow appeared in front of his eyes, growing bigger and bigger. What was that? Before the fishman butler could see clearly, he heard a thump and felt a sharp pain in his head. Stars flashed above his head, and then the world spun. Although Nicole was a necromancer, her strength was not weak. Under the sudden sneak attack, the fishman butler received a solid punch at the corner of his eye. He staggered back a few steps, and the corner of his eye became bruised. Ha ha ha! The people on the other ships burst into laughter. Seeing the fishman butler get beaten up, they laughed gloatingly. Ha ha! That fishman was beaten up by the Maori. Humph, the fishman butler? He's a disgrace to the fishman butler. Kill her! Kill her! Kill her! Kill her! At this moment it was unknown who shouted, but the entire dock was in an uproar. Everyone's words converged into one voice. Those people's faces were filled with ferocious and bloodthirsty expressions. In this calm and chatty Japan, seeing bloody things always made one's blood boil. Entertainment show, this was a higher race's massacre of a lower race. There was no reason for it. Haha, fishman butler, if you don't dare to kill her, your fishman butler can forget about living in the Shuolan continent. A person shouted strangely, stirring up the atmosphere. Ron's heart faintly flashed with a trace of unease. It was hard not to attract attention now. Nicole looked at her fist and then looked around. In an instant, she understood that she had become the focus of everyone's attention. Thinking of her mission, she was at a loss. You're courting death. The fishman butler was punched by Nicole in front of everyone. He flew into a rage out of humiliation. He looked at the little Maori girl in front of him, and a trace of murderous intent flashed in his eyes. His killing intent had been truly aroused. Inferior race, go to hell! The fishman butler shouted, and his body suddenly leaped. A black flame suddenly appeared on the long sword in his hand. The flame flickered and wildly slashed towards Nicole. Nicole's face was pale with fright. She did not know if she should react or not. Just as the black flames were about to engulf Nicole, they suddenly stopped. A large hand appeared out of thin air and grabbed the long sword's blade. It was Shea. Shea's tall body blocked in front of Nicole. The hood on her head had already floated down, revealing her beautiful silver hair. She said coldly, "Inferior race, relying on the strong to bully the weak. No matter how strong you are, you're just an empty shell without a soul." After saying that, Shea's hand suddenly twisted. The fishman butler howled miserably like a pig being slaughtered. His hand was twisted into a fried dough twist by Shea, and the intense pain was unbearable. Shea sent a flying kick, and the fishman butler rolled into the cabin like a gourd. His head fiercely hit the wall of the cabin, and he almost fainted. You're not Maori. The fishman butler struggled to stand up. At this moment, he finally saw Shea's face clearly and said in horror. Seeing Xiaolai, the surrounding ships burst into an uproar. They're not Maori, they're humans. Humans? Wait, why do these humans look so familiar? Where have I seen them before? A person rubbed his eyes and said, I remember now. Didn't Princess Vitala offer a reward of 100 black crystal coins for finding these humans? Another person said loudly, I have their portraits. Saying that, he took out a piece of paper from his bosom. That's right, it's them. They're the ones who attacked the Sea Clan's fleet. They're guilty of the most heinous crimes. A Sea Clan member pointed at Ron and the others and said loudly. Seeing Shea's face, and comparing it to the people in the portraits, the surrounding people on the ships cried out in alarm. They suddenly became excited, like hungry wolves who saw fresh blood. Ron stood on the ship and looked around blankly. At this moment, he knew that the matter of him attacking the Sea Clan's fleet on the secluded forest path had been exposed. Those people even had their portraits in their hand. Even now, Ron didn't know how the other party had found out about him. Even their appearances were clear as day. Capture them, and the 100 black crystal coins will be ours. At this moment, someone shouted. Immediately, everyone became excited as if they had taken drugs. Kill. Capture them. Capture these humans. Kill them. The crowd was in a frenzy, and with a single call, the people on the surrounding ships drew their weapons and shouted loudly as they approached. The allure of 100 black crystal coins was enough to make people go crazy. Many of them did not see the small line of words written under the portraits that they picked up. Note: these two are experts of the sacred domain. The surrounding people began to transform one after another. They came from various races, and some of them were extremely powerful. These people only had one goal, and that was to capture Ron and the others. Ron, what do we do now? Shea asked anxiously. She bit her lips tightly, as if she knew that she had done something wrong. Her face was deathly pale from fright. Hee. At this moment, facing such a predicament, Ron laughed. He slowly took off his hood, and his perplexed expression returned to its previous unswerving determination. He quietly looked at the experts charging at him from all directions, and the corners of his mouth curled into a faint sneer as he softly spat out 2 words. Chapter 6:25. Bear. As if she had received an order, a large amount of black flames erupted from Shea's body. She suddenly pulled out a long sword from her body, and like a whirlwind, she slashed at the people surrounding her. Blinded by greed, this referred to people who would disregard their lives for money. For the sake of a huge amount of wealth, under the incitement of some people, they even forgot to investigate the other party's strength. Boom! 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 The powerful black flames continued to spread, shaking the surroundings. Shea's long sword flew up and down, and the attacks of the experts of various races who were charging over were instantly disintegrated. Novel chapters: the long sword with holy light cut through the flesh of their bodies. Some people were seriously injured and fell into the sea while wailing, while others died on the spot. Stimulated by the fresh blood, those people finally woke up in an instant. Only then did they realize that the bounty target that was being besieged was actually an expert of the sacred domain. We are the prey, they are the hunters. The experts besieging Ron's group were finally frightened. Only now did they understand that the bounty of 100 black crystal coins offered by Princess Vitala was not so easy to obtain. They might even lose their lives if they were unlucky. Novel chapters. Everyone, don't panic. There are only 2 of them. Let's use long-range attacks to surround and kill them. At this time, someone shouted. Immediately, all the professions that could use long-range attacks launched their attacks at Ron's group. Greed could make people go crazy. White Bone Spear. At this time, Ron also moved. Since the other party had already seen through his identity, He did not need to be polite anymore. He quickly summoned the white bone spear, and threw it at the experts who could use long-range attack. The white bone spear spun, bringing with it a strong wind sound. It was like the arrival of the Grim Reaper, rushing towards the experts of various races. Boom! The white bone spear pierced through the deck of the ship, causing a strong explosion. The huge ship that was dozens of feet long was blown apart by Ron, and the experts of various races suffered heavy casualties. Skeleton warriors! Skeleton warriors! Terror Knights, come out! Ron laughed coldly and began to summon undead creatures. Kill these guys and use their souls as a sacrifice to our great death. As a black aura spread out, countless undead creatures were summoned. They held all kinds of weapons in their hands, and their eyes flashed with green light as they constantly roared. The Terror Knights that had returned from Hell rode on skeletal death horses and held huge sabers in their hands as they charged. Although Nicole was only a master wizard, she also participated in the attack. Perhaps because she was a necromancer, her attack power was not as strong as Ron and Shea's. Necromancers weren't a class that excelled in combat. Just as Nicole was in the middle of the battle, a powerful spell suddenly blasted towards Nicole. It was a powerful fire-type spell with extremely high temperatures. The fire elements drifting between heaven and earth were condensed into the shape of a longsword, which was hurtled directly toward Nicole. White bone shield. Ron didn't dare to be careless. He strode in front of Nicole, and at the same time summoned the white bone shield to block the incoming attack. Sparks flew in all directions, and the surrounding space seemed to be on fire, burning fiercely. Of course, this was only a master wizard spell, so it was impossible for it to break through Ron's defense. However, Nicole was so frightened that her beautiful face turned pale, and she kept burrowing into Ron's arms. "Thank you." Nicole was still in shock. If it wasn't for Ron, she would have at least been seriously injured. At this time, a few more attacks blasted towards Nicole. In addition to the powerful spell, there were also a few crossbow bolts. Obviously, they had seen that Nicole was the weakest of the three, so they mercilessly aimed all their attacks at her. Damn it! Ron naturally saw this, and he cursed in his heart and then shouted, "Kill them all, don't leave a single one alive." Ron's eyes were filled with intense killing intent. After blocking the opponent's attack, he waved the dragon bone staff in his hand, and a faint red light instantly spread out in all directions. Curse spell, weaken. With the appearance of the curse spell, the strength of the various powerhouses was greatly reduced. They only felt that their strength was rapidly decreasing, as if their bodies were soft, and they couldn't exert the slightest bit of strength. "What spell is this?" One of them turned pale with fright. "Not good, we've been cursed. Damn it, those damned undead." Some of them had already recognized Ron's curse spell. It was an attack spell from the undead, and at the same time, they all used their magic to get rid of the negative effects on their bodies. "You actually know the curse spell?" Nicole whispered as she watched Ron cast the spell. Her face was full of envy. The curse spell was an extremely difficult technique to master, and not just any necromancer could learn it. "I've learned a little." Ron nodded and said in a deep voice. He hesitated for a moment. "Nicole, don't participate in the attack anymore. Hide behind me, I'll protect you, okay?" At this critical moment, Nicole no longer acted coquettishly. She also understood that she was too weak and wouldn't be of much use in this kind of battle. At this moment, Shea had already summoned the nightmare beast. This death chariot, whose whole body was burning with flames, brought great pressure to everyone. Shea tenderly shouted and rode the nightmare beast, rushing out like a whirlwind. The nightmare beast jumped high and directly jumped over the bow of the ship. In the blink of an eye, it landed in front of the various powerhouses that were attacking from a distance. These powerhouses came from various races, and they had all kinds of strange appearances. Some had green skin and held two flying axes in their hands, but they were beastmen. Some had green faces and fangs, and they were constantly throwing spears. There were also some with long horns. The races that Ron and the others couldn't name were all stunned when they saw Shea suddenly appear in front of them. Shea's snow-white hair fluttered in the wind, and her entire body was wrapped in black flames. She was like a death god that had descended from the sky, and her whole body was filled with the aura of death. As a death knight, her mission was to bring death to people. Die! Shea's eyes flashed with murderous intent. The long sword in her hand mercilessly slashed down, and in the blink of an eye, a master-rank beastman warrior was split in half. Not good! The Death Knight is coming. Run, help! Melee classes were the nemesis of ranged classes. The premise was that they had to come in front of ranged classes. Ranged classes usually didn't have strong defenses, and once they got close to them, they would only be waiting to be slaughtered. Kill! 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 Shea's eyes turned red from killing. In an instant, more than a dozen powerhouses from various races fell into a pool of blood. Shea's sudden attack caused the attacks on Ron to collapse. Shea and Ron had a tacit understanding of each other, and they chased down the fleeing powerhouses one by one. The dock was ablaze, and dozens of ships were burned. A large amount of flames and dust floated into the air, forming a spectacular huge black smoke column. The smoke column was filled with fire, and half of Gatali Mandan could see it. The fierce battle on the dock finally attracted the attention of the residents of Gatali Mandan. They walked into the street, looking at the black smoke column in the sky with astonished eyes, and began to talk about it. "It's on the dock. Is someone fighting?" a person asked in surprise. "It seems so, but I don't know which blind guy dares to make trouble in Gatali Mandan. It seems that he is tired of living," another person said with a proud smile. "Not necessarily. The person who is making trouble seems to be a powerhouse from the sacred domain," the previous person said with a hint of doubt. "So what if he is a powerhouse from the sacred domain? Even if he is a powerhouse from the sacred domain, he will die if he encounters the powerful Naga Siren." At this time, another onlooker interrupted and said, "Look, the guards of Gatali Mandan have been dispatched." Dang! 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 Sure enough, after seeing the smoke column rising into the sky, someone rang the giant bell on the roof of the central building of Gatali Mandan, and the melodious sound of the bell spread throughout the city. It was a battle alarm, indicating the arrival of a powerful enemy. In the memory of the residents of Gatali Mandan, the central bell had not been rung for a long time. The last time it was rung was 100 years ago. After the bell rang, the entire city seemed to have been awakened. The entire city became boiling. The powerful guard force of Gatali Mandan began to be activated. Crash! Outside the palace, in front of the shop, in the dark corners of the street, in the sewers, in every corner of the city. One by one, heads poked out of the water. Dark golden eyes, ferocious heads, huge bodies, sharp teeth, and long snake-like tails. Countless Naga patrollers floated up from the water with various weapons in their hand. They looked at the huge smoke column above Gatali Mandan, and their faces showed strong indignation. With a low roar, their bodies swam quickly. In the water, their bodies were as flexible as swimming fish. On the water streets of Gatali Mandan, hundreds of Naga sirens gathered into a black torrent, quickly crowded the streets of the city, and quickly swam in the direction of the dock. Whoever made trouble in Gatali Mandan, no matter who it was, must die. There was only one belief in the hearts of all the Naga sirens, and that was that the troublemakers had been put on the death blacklist by them. At this time, the battle at the dock was nearing its end. The experts of various races who had besieged Ron and Xiao were either dead, injured, or fleeing. The remaining ones were begging for mercy, and no one dared to attack them again. At this moment, those greedy people understood that they had made a fatal mistake and kicked an iron plate. The survivors regretted it so much that their intestines turned green. The people who died were their people and companions. Boom! Ron used Frost Nova, to blast a powerhouse who participated in the siege into pieces. The corpses with broken ice, blood, and internal organs covered the deck, forming an extremely cruel scene. Another one killed. Ron glanced at the pile of minced meat indifferently, and then looked away. His heart was already as firm as a rock. Huh! At this time, Ron's heart moved. He felt a slight vibration on the surrounding water, as if something was surging over. It was menacing and extremely fast. What's that? Ron frowned. Through the crows in the sky, he saw a strange picture. Suddenly, he was shocked. Not good. The Naga army is coming, let's retreat. Ron said loudly to Shea, who was riding a nightmare beast and chasing after the fleeing powerhouses of various races. Okay. Shea didn't talk nonsense. She turned her horse's head and flew back like an acrobat. She quickly jumped over the burning ship. The nightmare beast's 4 flaming hooves left a series of charred marks on the deck. Nicole, let's go quickly. It'll be too late if we're late. Ron said to Nicole. Okay. Nicole nodded obediently and was about to leave. At this time, through the light of the sun, she saw a faint shadow on the ground. It was rapidly approaching, and the shadow's body revealed a strange reflection. Nicole was shocked and shouted, Ron, be careful! Unfortunately, the shadow's speed was extremely fast. Nicole's warning was a bit late. The shadow suddenly appeared in front of Ron, holding a shiny dagger in its hand and fiercely stabbing at Ron. You! Ron's eyes widened. The sneak attack was too sudden, and he didn't have time to react. Chapter 6:26. Ron! Shea exclaimed. Asterisk, 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 everything happened too fast, too sudden. By the time Shea rushed over, the black shadow had already escaped far away. Ron, are you all right? Shea jumped down from the nightmare beast and quickly ran over. She reached out to support Ron, her eyes filled with concern. At this time, Ron felt a numbing sensation coming from his wound. He looked down and saw green blood flowing out from the wound. That dagger is poisoned. Ron was shocked. Ha ha ha. The black shadow turned around and jumped onto the tall mast. He sneered. His red eyes stared at Ron with bloodthirsty eyes. At this time, he opened his mouth and said in a hoarse and low voice, How is it? Doesn't it taste good? I have waited for a long time for this opportunity. As soon as the shadow spoke, Ron felt that it was familiar. At this time, he understood that this person was the main culprit who had incited everyone to attack them. Every time those people retreated because of Ron and Shea's strength, there would always be a voice that would appear at the right time and control them to attack. What's more surprising is that this black shadow is actually a powerhouse from the sacred domain. The black shadow was wrapped in a black robe, revealing only his eyes, making it impossible to see his true face. Who are you? Why are you making things difficult for us? Facing a powerhouse from the sacred domain, Ron's eyes showed a trace of caution as he asked in a deep voice. The black shadow smiled slightly, although I don't have any enmity with you, but no one will make things difficult for money. The black shadow's meaning was clear. Everything he did was for money. In fact, when Ron's group appeared in Gatali Mandan, they were already targeted by him. Although Ron's group had put on disguise, the Black Shadow still recognized them. These 3 people were the mission issued by Princess Vitala. But when the Black Shadow wanted to make a move, he was in a difficult position. Ron's group had 2 powerhouses from the sacred domain, while he was alone. Moreover, the other party was obviously stronger than him. The small disturbance on the dock gave the Black Shadow an opportunity. He did not hesitate to add fuel to the fire. When Ron killed everyone and thought that the battle was over, he would give him a fatal blow. Ron's vision turned black, and his body was on the verge of collapse. The poison in his body began to act up. Shea gritted his teeth and brandished the holy sword in his hand, his eyes burning with raging flames. I'll go kill him. After saying this, she shouted loudly and jumped high into the air. The holy sword in her hand shone with a cold light under the scorching sun. The nightmare beast hissed and quickly followed her. The black shadow laughed wildly. You can't kill me. When those Naga patrollers arrive, my mission will be completed. As the black shadow spoke, he moved quickly, dodging Shaya's attack. Shaya's heart gradually became anxious because she felt that a large number of Naga sea race experts were rapidly approaching from the sky, the land, and the water. The situation was extremely tense. Ron's vision gradually became blurry, and the poison had begun to invade his brain. However, at this extremely critical moment, his mind was extremely clear. Bone wall. Facing the blurry shadow that was constantly moving, Ron softly spat out 2 words. Suddenly, a wide, 3-meter-tall wall suddenly rose into the sky, blocking the path of the black shadow. The black shadow did not seem to expect this sudden bone wall, and was about to hit it. He hurriedly stopped his body. It was at this moment of pause that Ron made his move again. Frost Nova. A bone-chilling cold energy quickly condensed and concentrated on the black shadow. Boom! The cold ice scattered, and the power of Frost Nova burst out. The bone-chilling cold instantly spread in all directions. Move. I can't move. The black shadow was shocked. He only felt that his body had become extremely stiff, and every step he took required a lot of energy. Of course, Shaya would not let go of this opportunity. She rode the nightmare beast and quickly caught up. The sharp sword swept across the black shadow's head, gudong gudong. The black shadow's head rolled down the stairs of the ship until it rolled in front of Ron. The black cloth wrapped tightly around the head finally opened, revealing a hideous and terrifying face. Ron struggled to open his eyes and looked at the head at his feet. It was a race that he had never seen before. It's the dark race. Nicole exclaimed, this is a race that lives in the dark. During the day, they must be wrapped in black cloth. They are born with a superb stealth ability. They use poison and are good at assassination. Dark race. Ron smiled with difficulty. There were people who would lose their lives for money everywhere, and it was not limited to a race. However, Ron was not interested in what race they were. The only thing he wanted to do now was to leave. Ron's trembling hand reached for the space pouch at his waist and took out the antidote. He bit open the cap and drank it directly. After a while, the poison was almost completely removed. Ron also felt more energetic. When he reached into the space pouch to look for more potions of life, he was stunned. The box containing the potions of life was empty. The potions he brought from the Noah continent were all gone. This meant that Ron's injuries could not be treated effectively. Just as Ron was holding the empty box in a daze, a strange light lit up. After a while, Ron felt that the wounds on his body were no longer painful. He looked down and saw that the wounds had begun to scab. Nicole was holding a long staff in her hand. Her eyes were closed, and her mouth was constantly chanting something in a low voice. After chanting, she opened her eyes and smiled sweetly at Ron. "Nicole, you can heal?" Ron asked in amazement. As soon as the words came out of his mouth, he realized that he had asked nonsense. Nicole was a necromancer. Of course she could heal. "They're here. It's the humans, kill them." At this time, there was a loud noise from afar. It was the Sea Tribe's patrollers. When they saw Ron, they glared at him with bloodshot eyes and roared. "A mere human dares to cause trouble in Gadalamandan. Kill without mercy." The Naga patrollers were like an army, rushing over from afar. The area was densely packed with Naga patrollers, their numbers unknown. When the bell in the city rang, almost half of the patrollers in Gadalamandan gathered. "Ron, what do we do now?" Shaya asked with a grave expression. Only then did she realize that all the roads were blocked. If she retreated any further, she would be looking at the boundless sea after the cataclysm. Regardless of the terrifying number of Naga patrollers, the fierce battle would inevitably alarm the sacred domain powerhouses of Gadalamandan. When the time comes for a battle in the sacred domain, Ron and the others may not be able to gain the upper hand, not to mention they still have to protect a person. Flying in the air was not a problem, but a large number of magicians and sea witch hunters below were not to be trifled with. Flying in the air would only become their target. The situation was extremely critical. Ron, think of something. Nicole was so shocked that her face turned pale. She clutched tightly onto Ron's clothes, her voice trembling as she spoke. Ron looked at the swarm of Naga patrollers in front of him with a solemn expression. His mind was spinning rapidly. At this moment, Ron's gaze fell on the flying mast. His heart skipped a beat, and he instantly had an idea. It seems that the only way now is to go to sea. Ron thought for a moment and said, "Besides, according to our original route, aren't we going to sea?" Go to sea. Shea's eyes lit up. This was a good idea. However, the problem was, who knew how to sail? Ron looked at Nicole, who shook her head, indicating that she didn't know how to sail either. At this time, Shea rolled her eyes. She suddenly turned around and walked quickly to the fishman butler. The fishman butler had long been scared out of his wits by Ron and others' strength. He was about to quietly escape, but was caught by Shea, who grabbed him by the collar and lifted him up. Don't kill me!" The fishman butler waved his arms desperately and shouted in horror. "Cut the crap, do you know how to sail? Entertainment show?" Shea asked coldly. "Sail?" When the fishman butler heard this, he was stunned for a moment. He wanted to say that he didn't know, but he saw Shea's murderous gaze coldly staring at him. The saint artifact in her hand flashed with cold light. The fishman butler understood that as long as he said that he didn't know how to sail, his head would be separated from his body. The fishman butler swallowed a mouthful of saliva with difficulty and stammered, I know a little, humph." Shea coldly snorted. "Then quickly go and sail the ship." Yes. The fishman butler felt as if he had been pardoned. He hurriedly crawled to the cabin, but he heard Shea coldly added a sentence behind him. "Remember, don't play any tricks, otherwise you are dead." When the fishman butler heard this, he didn't dare to play any tricks and obediently went to sail the ship. Ka. At this time, an ear-piercing mechanical sound came from the ship. Following a violent vibration under their feet, the heavy ship slowly started to move. At this time, other than Ron and the rest, there was no one else on the ship. They had already escaped when the battle started. The huge ship raised its sails and slowly sailed out of the dock. "Not good, they want to escape on the ship. Quick, go and stop them. Don't let them escape," the Naga patrollers angrily shouted. Some sharp-eyed patrollers had already seen the faces of Ron, Shea, and Nicole. They knew that they were the humans that Princess Vitala had offered a bounty of 100 black crystal coins, so they couldn't let them escape. Some of the Naga patrollers had already jumped into the water and swam desperately towards the ship. "They are coming," Shea said. "Be careful, they are going to wreck the ship." Nicole turned pale with fright. "Don't worry." At this time, Ron was abnormally calm. He smiled slightly, his eyes flashing with killing intent. "Before I leave, I want to give them a small gift." As Ron spoke, his body slowly floated on the bow of the ship. At this moment, Ron's body was shrouded in black fog, and his pair of dark eyes had turned deep green. He held the dragon bone staff in his hand and chanted in a low voice. Powerful soul power continued to spread around. Nicole's body seemed to have been hit by a heavy blow. Her heart thumped uncontrollably. Her eyes widened in surprise, revealing a look of disbelief. This is death decay." Ron finally finished chanting the last syllable. He waved the staff in his hand, and a powerful death aura burst out. Boom! With the dock as the center, the powerful death aura quickly spread out. The death aura with strong corrosive power swallowed everything that could be swallowed, Be careful, he has cast a forbidden spell. No. I don't want to die. Before it started, Ron blasted the dock with his most powerful attack magic. The dock was already filled with countless Naga patrollers. They squeezed each other and screamed in horror. They couldn't even hide. They could only watch as their bodies were completely corroded and disappeared. Boom! 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 Under the powerful death aura, the dock finally collapsed, burying everything around it, including the destruction of all the ships. Ron's attack killed many Naga patrollers and also cut off their hope of pursuing. They could only stand helplessly in the water, resentfully watching the huge ship sail out of the dock, leave the harbor, and sail. Read_link_up. Chapter 627. What? They actually managed to escape? In an ordinary palace in Gatali Mandan, after listening to the report of the Naga patroller, Princess Vitala was so excited that she jumped up. The patroller was a position. The responsibility of this position was to manage the entire Naga patroller of Gatali Mandan. It was the most important guard force of Gatali Mandan. Yes, Your Highness, this subordinate was incompetent. I was unable to stop them from leaving. The Naga patroller was sweating profusely at this moment as he stuttered. Vitala snorted coldly and said sternly, "You are not incompetent, you are derelict. Since you knew that there was a riot on the dock, why didn't you rush to suppress it as soon as possible?" But they are powerhouses of the sacred domain," the chief of the Naga patrollers said awkwardly. After the riot at the dock, our Naga patrollers in Gatalamandan had rushed there as soon as possible. The vanguard even clashed with those people, but unfortunately they were too strong, and we couldn't stop them from leaving. They are powerhouses of the sacred domain. Don't tell me that our Naga clan doesn't have a sacred domain powerhouse? Is this your reason? Vitala pointed at the patroller and shouted, "You are also a powerhouse of the sacred domain. Where were you when the incident happened? Also, the 8th Legion, the most elite of the merfolk, is stationed west of the dock. If you feel that you can't handle it, why don't you ask them for help?" Faced with Vitala's stern questioning, the Naga patroller was speechless for a moment and began to mumble. In fact, someone had already reported to him that someone was causing trouble on the dock. Unfortunately, he didn't think that the matter was serious and didn't attract enough attention, so he didn't deal with it personally. He didn't expect that the person causing trouble in Gatali Mandan was actually the person that Princess Vitala had been anxiously looking for. If he had rushed to the dock as soon as possible, with his speed as a sacred domain expert, he might have been able to fight with Ron and the others very quickly, and the development of the situation would have been completely different. At this moment, Vitala quickly calmed down and looked at the Naga patroller with a blank expression. She glanced at the Naga patroller and said lightly, "This is a major dereliction of duty. However, I don't intend to make things difficult for you. You can go to the military court to receive your punishment." "Yes, Your Highness Princess Vitala." When the Naga patroller heard this, he heaved a sigh of relief as if he had been granted amnesty. His life was saved, but he would definitely not be able to keep his position. After the ranger chief left, Vitala sat down with one hand on his head, a thoughtful expression on his face. Fleet slowly approached. "Your Highness, what are you thinking about?" Vitala glanced at him and said, "I'm wondering, where did they go after leaving Gatalamandan?" Frit thought for a moment. "I've just asked some patrollers. It's said that after leaving the harbor, the ship headed straight east." "East." Princess Vitala's eyes lit up. She stood up with a swish and said, "Bring the sea map immediately." Not long after, a huge scroll was brought over. It was carried by 2 frogman warriors. They handed it to the front of Princess Vitala's palace, and slowly opened the scroll. It was a huge sea map with the distribution of various places in the Shuelon continent marked on it. The most eye-catching location was the capital of the Sea Clan, Gadalamandan. Princess Vitala stretched out her slender finger and pointed at the huge map. She slowly moved along the map and finally stopped at a place. Fleet looked and saw that the direction Princess Vitala was pointing at was Lonling Island. Although Lonling Island was an island in name, it was actually 1/5 the size of the Shuelon continent. Legend had it that Lonling Island was an extension of the Shuelon continent. For a long time, Lonling Island and the Shuelon continent were connected. However, this legend had never been officially recognized by people. "Your Highness, do you suspect that they went to Lonling Island?" Fleet asked. Vitala shook her head. "It's not a suspicion. I'm sure. If they go from the east, there's only one place like Lonling Island." Fleet nodded. "What do you plan to do, Your Highness?" "Chase." Vitala spat out a word. She slowly raised her head and glanced at Fleet. "We'll move immediately. Mobilize the 8th Army to chase after them." Vitala's eyes were filled with determination. "We must capture that girl and ask about the whereabouts of that thing. We must give our superiors an explanation. As for those 2 humans who cultivate the power of the dead, they've ruined my plans time and time again. They must die." Vitala's eyes were filled with murderous intent. "Fleet!" Vitala suddenly shouted. Fritz stood at attention and said loudly, "Yes, Your Highness! Immediately use my name to apply for a transfer order from Father. I want to mobilize the 8th Army to help me chase after them." Vitala said with a frosty expression. "What, you want to mobilize the 8th Army?" Fleet froze for a moment. The 8th Army was the most powerful army of the Seafolk. It was stationed in the capital of Gadalamandan and was directly responsible to Poseidon. It was not subject to the jurisdiction of any military court. The 8th Army had participated in all the battles of conquering the continent and made outstanding achievements. The army had all kinds of forces. Not only did it have the most powerful navy, but it also had powerful forces such as marines, airborne troops, and so on. Most importantly, there were many powerhouses in the army. Just the sacred domain alone had more than 20 powerhouses. With such an army, wouldn't it be making a mountain out of a molehill to capture a little girl and kill 2 powerhouses of the sacred domain? When Fleet asked Vitala this question, she responded indifferently. "You don't have to worry about this. Carry out the order immediately." "Yes." Seeing that Princess Vitala had made up her mind, Fleet did not say much. He quickly stood at attention, saluted, tidied his navy uniform, turned around and walked out of the hall. After returning, Fleet wrote an application to the Sea Emperor, stamped it with Princess Vitala's seal, and sent it directly to the Sea Emperor's study. To Fritz's surprise, the application had only been submitted for 10 minutes before a guard ran out and handed his application back to him. Fritz looked down and saw that beside the princess seal, there was an even bigger seal. This was His Majesty the Emperor of the Sea's warrant. Full of excitement, Fritz held onto the heavy warrant. He didn't dare to delay and immediately rushed to the headquarters of the 8th Legion with the warrant. Everything went smoothly. Under the order of Poseidon, the 8th Army only took 2 hours to complete the assembly. This was a quasi-war assembly. Within 2 hours, the 8th Army had prepared everything. A huge fleet of 200 ships, as well as all the supplies, equipment, food, and weapons. The powerful combat power of the 8th Army was enough to destroy some small countries, but such an army was actually used to carry out a pursuit mission. In the calm harbor, the waves swayed with the wind. More than 200 ships swayed gently, like soldiers waiting to be inspected, densely packed in the harbor. It was a spectacular sight. On each ship there were rows of Naga soldiers. They stood neatly at the bow of the ship, proudly standing tall. There were more than 200 ships and more than 100,000 people. This was an extremely large fleet. Just as Fritz thought, using the powerful 8th Legion to hunt down 2 Sanctuary Realm experts was making a mountain out of a molehill. The resources consumed by the Eighth Army for a single expedition were astronomical. Fleet did not think that it was worth it to capture that little girl. He also did not understand what Princess Vitala was thinking. What was even more unexpected was that His Majesty the Sea Emperor actually agreed. The shore of the harbor was already crowded with spectators. They whispered to each other and discussed. "Look, they are the Eighth Army. So impressive, I also want to join the Eighth Army. Why did the Eighth Army suddenly gather? Is there going to be a war?" "Sorry, I don't know anything." Just as the residents of Gadalamandan were whispering to the Eighth Army, Princess Vitala, who was dressed in military attire, slowly walked to the bow of the ship surrounded by the sea race soldiers. On the broad deck of the bow, in addition to the Naga soldiers, there were more than 20 Naga standing in a row in the middle. They were wearing the same uniform and their faces were full of arrogance. These people were the elites and pride of the Eighth Army because they were all experts from the sacred domain. The tallest Naga from the sacred domain took a step forward and said loudly, "Your Highness Princess Vitala, the Eighth Army has been completely assembled. According to His Majesty the Sea Emperor's order, our Eighth Army will be under Your Highness' command during this period. Your Highness Princess Vitala, please give the order." He had a single horn on his head, and the other horn was obviously broken. His body was covered with patterns, and his limbs were disproportionately long. The most eye-catching thing was that there was a huge scar on his face that extended to his neck, making him look unusually ferocious. His name was Buryorkov, and he was the commander of the Eighth Army. He was a powerful expert from the sacred domain, and he had experienced hundreds of battles. A soldier's duty was to obey orders. After receiving Poseidon's order, Buryorkov did not ask anything and directly gathered his troops, waiting for Princess Vitala's order. "Very good, Commander Buryorkov." Vitala nodded faintly, expressing her satisfaction with Buryorkov's words and deeds. "Our Eighth Army's mission this time is to capture an undead girl about 14 or 15 years old and kill the 2 experts from the sacred domain around her." "That's it," Frit added. "They have fled to Lonling Island in the east. We must pursue them as soon as possible." "Yes," Buryorkov replied loudly, "I swear to complete the mission." Although Buryorkov's heart was full of doubts, he did not ask anything. What he had to do was to execute the order. "Loyal to His Majesty the Sea Emperor," a group of sea race experts shouted in unison. "Let's go." Princess Vitala waved her hand faintly. "Beat." Chapter 628. The blue sea, the blue sky, the sea and the sky were the same color, interweaving into a blue world. A ship was sailing alone on the sea, leaving behind a trail of water behind it. "Hey, do you know how to drive a ship? If it keeps going like this, I'm going to vomit all out." Nicole fiercely flicked the fishman butler's head and said angrily. Along the way, because the ship was sailing through the wind and waves, she had already vomited and looked weak. But strangely, when she was teaching the fishman butler a lesson, she was very energetic. The fishman butler shrank his head and said with a bitter face, Don't, miss, I'll drive steadily." At this moment, the fishman butler was very sullen. The wind and waves were not something he could control. Besides, how could there be no wind and waves on the sea? Although he was very unconvinced, he did not show it on his face. He looked like a yes-man, but in his heart, he had already cursed Nicole's 18 generations of ancestors. Murlock's steward glanced at Shia, who was standing beside the cabin. In the past few days, he had suffered greatly at Shia's hands. Not to mention driving the ship day and night when he was free, he still had to do manual labor. He was tortured until he was neither human nor ghost. He didn't dare to resist and naturally didn't dare to say anything. "Look." Ron stood on the deck and looked at the dark blue sea. The breeze blew through his black hair and he sighed with emotion. Fortunately, he had found such a ship. Now, it seemed that it was a wise choice. Otherwise, riding a bone dragon on the vast sea, he would have nowhere to rest. It had to be known that riding a bone dragon consumed a lot of soul force. "How long until we reach Lonling Island?" Ron asked. Replying to Sir, "We will reach Lonling Island in about 3 days." The fishman butler nodded and bowed. He was very polite to this young sacred domain powerhouse. Ron nodded, looked at him and said, "When we reach Lonling Island, you can leave on your own." Ron's meaning was very clear. Once they reached Lonling Island, he would let him go. Through these days of contact, although this fishman butler was a bit greedy and a bit unscrupulous, overall, he was not a very bad person. Thank you, Lord Ron." When the fishman butler heard this, he bowed and thanked him with tears of gratitude. He had been waiting for this sentence for a long time. "Humph." Nicole sniffled in dissatisfaction. She was not very happy with Ron's decision. Without this Murloc butler, there would be a lot less fun along the way. Ron was too lazy to pay attention to her. He closed his eyes and quietly entered a state of cultivation. These days, in order to meet the challenges in the future, Ron began to cultivate day and night. The strong pressure forced him to constantly pursue the pinnacle of strength. Hard work paid off. Ron's desperate training finally brought about glorious results. He felt that he had touched the threshold of the high rank of Grand Magus Necromancer. Sensing all of this, Ron was immediately overjoyed and cultivated even more desperately. It had to be known that starting from the sacred domain, every progress required great effort and sweat. In just a few years, he had advanced from a low-ranked Grand Magus Necromancer to a high-ranked Grand Magus Necromancer. It could be said that this was a great leap in development. The Book of Death quietly floated in Ron's sea of consciousness, as if it was one with his soul. But no matter how hard Ron tried, he was unable to pry into the contents of the 3rd chapter of the Book of Death. "Looks like I can't open it." After a long time, Ron finally gave up and let out a long sigh. He didn't know why, but he felt that the Book of Death had a special connection with the soul force that he cultivated. As for what this connection was, Ron still wasn't clear. The night on the sea was calm and beautiful. The moon hung high in the sky, leaving a glaring shadow on the Black Sea. At this time, a huge fleet appeared out of thin air from the horizon and broke into a certain part of the sea. The huge bow of the ship cut through the waves and startled a shoal of fish. In the sky, a few birds called haydonking were constantly circling, vigilantly scanning the ships passing through this part of the sea. But unfortunately, not to mention ships, there wasn't even a sampan in the sea around the fleet. The haydonking helplessly flew back to the ship and returned to the hands of their master. "How is it?" Princess Vitala, dressed in martial attire, asked with a serious expression. "Reporting to your highness, we didn't find anything." A Naga clan member in front of Princess Vitala bowed and said. On his shoulder there was a huge sea holly. "Continue to search, try to intercept them before they reach Lonling Island." Princess Vitala's face was frosty as she coldly said. "Yes, your highness." Vitala nodded. She turned around and returned to her room. Her high-heeled shoes made a heavy sound as she stepped on the deck, just like her mood at the moment. Vitala returned to her cabin room and closed the door. Then she sat down on the wide sofa and sighed. She closed her eyes and gently rubbed her temples. These days she had been extremely annoyed. The matter of the undead girl being rescued had made her anxious. Suddenly, Vitala's heart skipped a beat. She opened her eyes in shock and stared blankly at the deck in front of her, as if there was something there. There was nothing on the deck in front of her, but at this moment, a ball of flame seemed to appear out of thin air. With a bang, it burned, and the flame grew bigger and bigger. The flame that appeared out of thin air floated quietly in the air, constantly flickering. Slowly, the flame began to change, and a woman's head gradually appeared in the burning flame. She was an extremely beautiful woman, but the flames that kept burning made it hard for people to see her. She had an oval face, and her eyes were like those of a poisonous snake. She opened her small mouth slightly, revealing 2 small fangs at the corner of her mouth. She looked extremely demonic and sinister. The woman's head formed by the flames suddenly appeared in the room. No matter how one looked at it, it felt very strange. The flames carried a powerful force that filled every corner of the room. Princess Vitala looked at the figure in the flames and immediately stood up. She knelt respectfully. "Vitala greets Your Excellency." If anyone saw Princess Vitala like this, they would definitely be shocked out of their wit. Who was it? Even the noble princess of the sea race had to respectfully kneel down and pay her respects. There was only one answer. This flame was the superior that Vitala had mentioned. Only the superior could make Vitala, and even the entire sea race, show a respectful expression. At this moment, the floating flame spoke. Her voice was sharp and low, sounding exceptionally ear-piercing. "Vitala, how's the matter I asked you to do? Have you found that thing?" The floating flame said faintly. The moment she opened her mouth, it was a direct order. Vitala's heart tightened. She bit her lips and said, "I'm sorry, Your Excellency. Until now, we still haven't found the whereabouts of that girl." "What? You still haven't found the girl?" When the flame heard this, its expression immediately changed. The burning flame also trembled for a while, looking abnormally furious. The flame raised its voice and said sharply, "That girl has been in the Shuolan continent for so many days, and you still haven't found her whereabouts? What are you people of the Sea Clan doing?" Being reprimanded by the flame, Princess Vitala's cold sweat slowly flowed down her forehead. She was extremely nervous. I'm sorry, Your Excellency. Our people had already found her, but she was kidnapped halfway. Vitala stuttered as she recounted what had happened. Although she tried to maintain her composure, her voice was filled with fear. "I don't care. No matter what, you must find that thing for me." The flame's voice suddenly raised an octave. She said sternly, "I'm telling you, Vitala. I don't care what method you use. You must complete this matter for me. Otherwise, I will reconsider my relationship with the Sea Clan." The flame's voice contained a warning. Yes, Your Excellency." Princess Vitala nodded like a chicken pecking at rice. "I will do my best. I will capture that girl and force out the whereabouts of that thing. I will hand it to Your Excellency." The flame snorted coldly, "Very good. I'll listen to your words. However, I don't like to listen to pretty words. What I want is real action." As she spoke, she paused for a moment and said coldly, 3 days. I'll only give you 3 days. You must find that girl within 3 days. Otherwise, humph." The flames humph made Princess Vitala shiver. She knew very well what it meant if she could not do it. Hundreds of years ago, the weak Sea Clan was supported by them. If they wanted to, they could also suppress them. The Sea Clan, who had occupied the peak of the Shuolan continent, would not be allowed to decline. Vitala understood that once the Sea Clan declined, it would be a disaster of extinction. The anger of the various clans of the Shuolan continent, which had been suppressed for hundreds of years, would erupt all at once. The Sea Clan would finally return to their former position. At this moment, Vitala could only grit her teeth and agree. Seeing Vitala's sincere attitude, the flame's attitude finally became gentler. She said faintly, "Very good, Vitala. I hope you'll do as you say. To be honest, I don't want to force you. However, according to the information we received, some people from the main dimension of the dead spirits have already come to the Shuolan continent. They are also looking for this girl. So, I hope you can find this girl before they do. At the same time, force her to hand over that thing. I'll say it again, this is an order. There's absolutely no room for error." As the woman in the flame spoke, she slowly faded. After a while, she disappeared without a trace. It was as if she had never appeared. The room in the cabin finally regained its peace. Vitala's heart still had lingering fear. She slowly stood up. At this moment, she realized that her back was already drenched in cold sweat. "Only 3 days?" Vitala murmured. The order from above gave her a lot of pressure, causing her to be a little breathless. 3 days. I must find those 3 people, Vitala said secretly. Her eyes were filled with determination. Chapter 629. After a few days and nights of sailing, Ron and the others finally arrived at the Lonling Island. When they arrived at the Lonling Island, it was already early in the morning. The ship Ron and the others were on slowly docked. "Sir, we have arrived at the Lonling Island," the fishman butler said respectfully. "Have we arrived?" An evil smile appeared on Nicole's face. "Very well, you can go now." The fishman butler did not move. Shea frowned. She noticed that when Nicole spoke, the corners of her eyes involuntarily revealed a trace of killing intent. "You can go," Ron muttered to himself for a moment and said. "Thank you, Lord Ron." Hearing Ron's words, the fishman butler heaved a sigh of relief, as if he had been granted amnesty. He bowed deeply, thanking Ron for not killing him. After getting Ron's promise, the fishman butler left boldly. "Ron, why didn't you kill him?" After the fishman butler left, Nicole was very dissatisfied. "What if he tells the Naga Sea tribe?" "Look, I believe he won't." Ron narrowed his eyes. He slowly withdrew his gaze and glanced at Nicole. "Our mission is to protect you safely to that place, not to kill for you. Besides, you also have things that you are hiding from us, such as your identity, and the purpose of the Sea tribe chasing you," Ron said indifferently. From these days of getting along, Ron sensitively felt that the identity of this girl named Nicole was somewhat suspicious. She seemed to have come from a higher plane. Of course, this was only a suspicion, and Ron did not say it out loud. Ron's rhetorical question made Nicole speechless for a moment. She became stammering. Didn't I tell you? Those Nagas caught me to get something on my body. As for my identity," Nicole gritted her teeth. "I can't tell you yet. Do whatever you want." Ron said expressionlessly, "I have no interest in your identity or that thing. I only want to send you to your destination." After saying that, he ignored Nicole and turned to leave. Shea looked at Nicole and followed him. "Hey, you guys, wait for me." Seeing that Ron and Shea were ignoring her, Nicole became anxious and quickly chased after them. The city that Ron and the others came to was called Fernan. It was a small city on the coast of Lonling Island in the Shuelon continent. Although the city was small, it was filled with a strong commercial atmosphere. After passing through half of the city, Zhang Tai had a simple breakfast in a small hotel in Fernan City. Looking up at the sky, he realized that it was already noon. Under the guidance of others, Ron and Shea came to a place called the Commercial Street. Different from other commercial streets, this was a small commodity distribution center. Merchants from all over the Shuelon continent spread a piece of red cloth on the ground, which was filled with all kinds of small commodities. The prices were very cheap, from small things like food and clothes to large things like weapons, equipment, and accessories. The merchants shouted loudly, enthusiastically attracting customers from all over the place. Compared to Disastrous City, the commercial street in Fernan City was a few grades worse. Although the things here were more than half cheaper than in Disastrous City, it did not arouse the interest of Ron and Shea to shop. Other than buying some necessities, they almost did not buy anything else. On the contrary, Nicole was very excited. She strolled here and there and bought a lot of things in a short while. Food, necessities, toys, accessories, weapons, equipment, and so on. She bought a lot of things, regardless of whether they were useful or not. She bought them all first and then stuffed them into her own spatial ring. Ron was very worried that her spatial ring would burst with so many things. Nicole was born sweet and charming. Adding to that her extravagant spending, she was like a celebrity. Very soon, she was welcomed by those small merchants. Every merchant fought to be the first to introduce their best products to her. Wherever she went, she set off a wave, sweeping through the entire commercial street like a whirlwind. Nicole did not have paper money. She used black crystal coins to make transactions. In just half an hour, Nicole had spent more than 100 black crystal coins. It was very obvious that compared to Disal, which was known as the currency of the Schwellon continent, those merchants preferred hard currency like black crystal coins. Nicole's forthrightness naturally attracted some people's attention, especially those with evil intentions. They stared at the spatial ring in Nicole's hand, almost drooling. However, when their gazes fell on the two sacred domain experts behind Nicole, they quickly dispelled this unrealistic thought. Although they were only people who made a living at the bottom, they knew who they could and could not afford to offend. Those who could have the personal protection of experts from the sacred domain were not simple people. At the very least, they were not people of their level who could afford to offend. This little girl is too good at spending money. Shea looked at Nicole, who was surrounded by the small merchants like stars surrounding the moon, and shook his head slightly. Even experts from the sacred domain might not earn as much black crystal coins as Nicole just spent in a short while. Thinking back to how she had almost risked her life for 1 or 2 black crystal coins, Shea could not help but bitterly smile. She glanced at Ron and saw that he had his head lowered. She did not know what he was thinking. Shea nudged Ron with her elbow and asked, "What are you thinking about?" "I'm thinking," Ron paused for a moment and said, "this girl's identity. I'm afraid it's not that simple." As he spoke, Nicole had already skipped back. "Ron, Shea, the things here are too cheap. Look, this glove made from the fur of a corsador lizard is only 1 black crystal coin. Look at this and this." Nicole showed Ron and Shea the results of her shopping for more than half an hour as if she was presenting a treasure. Ron took a look. Many of the things were flashy and worthless, but Nicole still thought they were cheap. "Oh right, here are your gifts," Nicole said with a smile. "You have protected me for so long, so I should give you something." She gave Shea a black necklace, and gave Ron a belt made from the skin of an unknown animal. Ron casually glanced at it before putting it into his space bag. Shea looked at Ron and also put away the black necklace. "Are you done?" Ron asked expressionlessly. "I'm done," Nicole replied. "Then let's go." Ron turned around and walked in front. Nicole stuck out her tongue playfully and quickly followed. After passing through the commercial street and preparing to leave Fernan City, Nicole gently tugged at the corner of Ron's clothes. "What's the matter now?" Ron looked at Nicole and frowned. Nicole looked at Ron with pleading eyes. She stretched out her hand and pointed to the building beside her, indicating that she wanted to go there. Ron looked in the direction of Nicole's finger. It was a grayish-black building. A sign that looked like a weight was painted on the roof. The door at the bottom was open, and the ground was covered with a thick red carpet. More than 10 guards of unknown races were standing there. "What is this place?" Ron knitted his brows and asked. "It's an auction house," Nicole said with a smile. "Ron, I heard that there are many good things in the auction house. Do you think we should go in and take a look? You still want to buy things? Didn't you buy a lot just now?" Shea looked at her in astonishment. Only then did she realize that the little girl in front of her was an out-and-out shopaholic. Shea didn't dare to imagine how much a person who could spend 100 black crystal coins in a small commercial street would spend in an auction house of a higher grade. "No, we still have to hurry," Ron refused without thinking. The sea race might be aware of their existence. The longer they stayed here, the more dangerous it would be. It was more important to send this guy to his destination as soon as possible. "Okay, Ron, okay." Nicole acted coquettishly. She gently shook Ron's arm and said, "Just once. Just once. Okay, I won't buy anything in the future." Under Nicole's insistence, Ron finally agreed. Okay, just once. If you want to buy something, hurry up and leave. Ron replied after thinking for a while. Okay. Nicole was so happy that she jumped 3 feet high. She pulled Ron and Shea and rushed into the auction house. Hello. At this moment, a guard standing beside the auction house stopped her with a smile. He extended his hand and said courteously, "Please show me your VIP card." VIP card? Nicole was stunned for a moment. I don't have one. I just arrived in this city. What? You don't have a VIP card? When the guard heard this, his face changed. He snorted coldly and said, I'm sorry, everyone. This passage is for VIPs only. You can't enter without a VIP card. The entrance for you ordinary guests is over there. The guard pointed to another door and said, Humph, you snob. Nicole was very dissatisfied. She rolled her eyes at the guard and said coldly. The guard was furious, but he didn't dare to do anything. One must know that the 2 experts from the sacred domain were coldly staring at him. Nicole didn't have the time to care about what he thought. She pulled Ron and Shea and walked towards the door. Ron and the other 2 went through the door. After each of them paid 1,000 desos, they were allowed to enter the auction house. The auction house was a huge hall. In the middle of the hall there was a luxurious stage. The surrounding stands were already filled with people. Those who were participating in the auction and those who were just here to watch the show were all gathered together. They were making loud noises. The noise, the smell of sweat, and the stench in the narrow space were all mixed together, making people feel extremely uncomfortable. Behind the stands, there was a row of floor-to-ceiling windows. Inside the windows were rooms. The windows were made of black crystals. It was very strange. Looking at the rooms from the windows, one couldn't see anything. But looking at the windows from the rooms, one could see everything clearly. Ron guessed that this was probably the VIP box of the auction house. It was also the place where they entered from the VIP passage. Of course, Ron and the others could only sit in the most ordinary seats below. At this moment, the auction house's magic loudspeaker sounded. Quiet down, everyone, quiet down. Our auction is about to begin. It's starting. Nicole was as excited as if she was celebrating a festival. She pulled Ron's arm. I wonder what good things will be auctioned today? Chapter 630. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Lehman Auction House. I am the host of this auction, Ada, a voice was heard. It was very pleasant to Ron's ears. At this moment, the curtains on the auction stage were lifted, and a graceful figure walked out leisurely. It's Ada. Ada has come out, Ada. Ada. As soon as the female host of the auction house appeared, the audience burst into an uproar. They stood up and loudly called out the catgirl's name. Many of them were Ada's loyal fans. They did not hesitate to spend 1,000 dasaw just to catch a glimpse of her. I didn't expect a catgirl to host the auction. This auction house is really something, Nicole said with a smile. Ron stared blankly for a moment. Catgirl? Yes, catgirl. Nicole nodded and said, This woman comes from a strange race called the Cat Clan. This race has no talent in cultivation, but every woman in the Cat Clan is exceptionally beautiful. However, due to their small population, there are even fewer women. Therefore, they have always been regarded as national treasures. It is said that the value of a catgirl is over 200 black crystal coins. 200 black crystal coins? Shea gasped when she heard this. Why is it so expensive? I thought they had no combat ability? Ron asked as he looked at the catgirl in the auction hall. Nicole giggled when she heard this. Although they have no combat ability, every one of them is a peerless beauty. Their faces are gorgeous, and their figures are excellent. Their waists are extremely soft, and their skin is full of elasticity. Their bodies can even be bent at 90 degrees. At this point, Nicole deliberately paused and glanced at Ron. She raised her eyebrows and revealed an expression that said, You know what I mean. Also, it's said that the catgirl's cries can even excite any creature of the opposite sex. They have another nickname, men's aphrodisiac. The nobles here all take pride in having a catgirl as their concubine. Why do you think it's so expensive? Human trafficking was a common occurrence in the Noah continent, and it was even more common in the Shuelon continent, so it was not surprising. What made Ron blush with shame was that the price of this catgirl was far beyond his imagination. It seemed that it was not that others were too rich, but that he was too poor. Hello, everyone. The monthly Lehman auction has started. Ada is here to meet you again. Did you miss me these days? Ada changed the topic and said loudly. Her long black tail shook, showing that she was very excited at the moment. Miss! The audience shouted loudly, their faces full of fanaticism. Seeing the audience cheering for her, the catgirl MC smiled. She blinked slightly and gently stuck out her small tongue, making a charming expression. At the same time, she put her index finger to her lips and gently kissed it. Any action of a beauty was pleasing to the eyes. The charming catgirl was even more maddening. The atmosphere of the scene suddenly soared to the highest point. In the auction, Ada's charm was like that of a star. The catgirl MC walked around the stage, greeted familiar audience members, and waved to the audience in the distance. Seeing that the atmosphere was about right, she returned to the center. Although I know that everyone misses me, it's a pity that Ada is not the main character today. The real main character is the treasures of our Lehman auction. The things that we auction at Lehman Auction have all been appraised by professional appraisers. Ada held a card in her hand and spoke eloquently for more than 10 minutes. Her pleasant and slightly magnetic voice resounded throughout the hall. In the end, she said, the auction starts now. She ended her speech. The lights in the auction hall suddenly dimmed, and all the lights shone on the big stage in the center. At this time, the floor on the stage slowly opened, and a middle-aged man with a cold expression slowly rose from it. He stood behind a table with a small hammer in his hand and said coldly, I am the auctioneer of Lehman Auction House. It is my pleasure to serve everyone. Now, let me present the first auction item, the auctioneer said slowly. At this time, the curtain on the table was slowly lifted, and a blue bracelet was quietly lying on the tray under the curtain. This is Highland's Mana Regeneration Bracelet. We know that there are many Mana Regeneration necklaces, but Mana Regeneration bracelets are extremely rare. It is a sacred domain grade accessory, and can be used together with a Mana Regeneration necklace. It should be noted that this is the work of a Drenii master and is priceless. The starting price is 50 black crystal coins, and each bid will increase by at least 1 black crystal coin. Now the auction starts, the auctioneer said expressionlessly. 51. 52. As soon as the auctioneer finished speaking, the auction hall was set off with a fierce competition. A Mana Regeneration bracelet that could be used together with a Mana Regeneration necklace. Ron was already tempted when he heard this. He wanted to buy it for Kadena, but when he heard the price, he immediately withered. 50 black crystal coins. Whether or not the bracelet was worth that price, he couldn't afford it. Although Ron didn't think the bracelet was worth that price, the price had already soared to 75 black crystal coins. At this point in the price war, many people thought that the price had reached its limit and that it couldn't be raised anymore. 75 black crystal coins going once, 75 black crystal coins going twice, the auctioneer shouted loudly. He deliberately paused for a moment, and his eyes kept darting around, hoping that someone would bid higher. Unfortunately, he miscalculated. No one was willing to bid. This time, the price of the Mana bracelet was fixed at 75 black crystal coins. There was a trace of disappointment in the auctioneer's eyes. Although he was satisfied with the price, the actual price should have been higher. 75 black crystal coins going thrice. Deal, the auctioneer raised the hammer in his hand high. Just as he was about to bring it down, he heard a voice abruptly. 80 black crystal coins, 80 black crystal coins? The auctioneer stared blankly for a moment. Only then did he realize that the voice came from VIP box number 9. His spirits were immediately lifted. This meant that the guests in those boxes had joined the bidding war. It also proved that the goods of Lehman Auction House could withstand the test. 80 black crystal coins. Ada's mouth had already formed an O shape. 80 black crystal coins. 80 black crystal coins. The guests in VIP box number 9 have bid 80 black crystal coins. Are there any higher bids? Ada's emotions were also stirred. She immediately interrupted and said loudly, "Wow, they increased the price by 5 black crystal coins. They are so rich." "Yeah, they are indeed VIPs in VIP boxes. We are not on the same level as them. Although I really want this bracelet, I'd better give it up. There is no way I can compete with them." As soon as the bid of 85 black crystal coins was announced, the audience began to whisper. They looked at VIP box number 9 with envy and jealousy. They knew that the people in those boxes were not people they could afford to offend. A young man was sitting on a thick sofa in the middle of the box. He had a pair of green eyes. His head was wrapped in a thick cloth as a hat. There was a rare calmness on his tranquil face. He was observing the situation outside through the wide floor-to-ceiling window. He was holding a glass of red wine in his hand. He gently swirled it but did not drink it. At this time, a middle-aged man who looked like a butler slowly walked into the box. He bowed slightly and said, "Your Highness, I have bid 80 black crystal coins as you instructed." "Not bad." The young man called the second prince smiled with satisfaction. He raised his wine glass slightly and said with confidence, "I believe that this price has already scared off many people." The middle-aged man smiled and said, "Of course, who doesn't know that VIP box number 9 is your Highness' private box? I believe that after you shouted this price, no one else will bid any more." The second prince was slightly dazed. He did not comment on the middle-aged man's words. Indeed, after VIP box number 9 shouted 80 black crystal coins, no one else bid any more. 80 black crystal coins going once, going twice, going thrice. Ada shouted loudly. At this moment, she had completely taken over the work of the auctioneer. 90 black crystal coins. Boom! The sound was no less than a sudden clap of thunder. The sudden sound scared everyone silly. That sound actually came from private room number 1. Who? He actually dares to raise the price of VIP box number 9? Doesn't he know that VIP box number 9 is the private box of the Stan Empire's second prince? Who exactly is he? Is he tired of living? Discussions broke out among the spectators. The Stan Empire was a medium-sized empire located on Lonling Island. Due to the production of a rare metal called mithril, it had become extremely wealthy. The smile on the second prince's face abruptly disappeared, and a trace of gloom appeared on his face. As the second prince of the Stan Empire, he certainly did not care about money, but he cared about his dignity. At this moment, he felt that his dignity was being challenged. 95 black crystal coins. The second prince squeezed out a sentence from between his teeth. He coldly stared at VIP box number 1 as though he wanted to see through it. 100 black crystal coins. The person in the box did not seem to care about the second prince at all. He did not hesitate to shout out a price of 100 black crystal coins. 105, 110. To the second prince's surprise, the person in VIP box number 1 seemed to be going all out. Every time he shouted a price, the other party would raise it by 5 black crystal coins. Soon, the price of the mana-restoring bracelet rose to 120 black crystal coins. This had far exceeded the value of the bracelet itself, and the people in the audience began to realize that this wasn't an auction at all. It was a competition of wealth and dignity. According to the rules of the Lehman Auction House, once an item was bought, one had to pay the full amount. One could not be late or go back on their word. Otherwise, they would be severely punished. Therefore, they had to be responsible for the price they shouted. Go investigate them. Find out who is ruining my business, the second prince said with a gloomy face. Yes, your highness. The middle-aged man did not look too good. He nodded and turned to leave. After a while, he returned with a grave expression. Your highness, the person in VIP box number 1 is a Zisik. A Zisik? The second prince was stunned. That mithril merchant? Yes, the middle-aged man answered honestly. It is said that he is one of the first prince's men. The first prince. The second prince revealed an extremely resentful expression. He involuntarily clenched his fists. After a while, his fists loosened and he weakly sprawled on the sofa. Forget it. Let him be. After VIP box number 1 called out the price of 120 black crystal coins, VIP box number 9 seemed to have fallen silent. There was no response. 120 black crystal coins. That's terrifying. Shea was speechless at the terrifying price. This has far exceeded the value of the bracelet itself, Ron said. I really don't know what those people are thinking. Shea shrugged helplessly. In this Vanity Fair filled with the stench of money, they could only be lonely spectators. Nicole did not say a word. Her eyes moved slightly as if she was thinking about something. Your Highness, you are still too inexperienced to compete with me. It's 120 black crystal coins now. Let's see if you still dare to follow. In box number 1, a huge fat man sat. He alone occupied the entire sofa, and the others could only stand. He was the Stan Empire's mithril merchant, Azek Sik, who had monopolized nearly 60% of the mithril business in the Stan Empire. He smiled proudly and flicked his finger forward. Hee, so what if you're the second prince? I'll show you what it means to be rich and powerful. Ada felt that her throat was dry. She had never heard of a mana recovery bracelet being sold for 120 black crystal coins. The price had far exceeded the price of the bracelet itself. Her voice was trembling as she spoke. 120 black crystal coins going once. 120 black crystal coins going twice. At this moment, the entire hall quieted down. Only Ada's pleasant voice echoed. 120 black crystal coins going thrice. At this moment, the auctioneer raised the hammer in his hand high. Just when everyone thought that this show of wealth had come to an end, a young voice suddenly sounded. I bid 130 black crystal coins. Chapter 631. 130 black crystal coins. The Catwoman MC was stunned. Only then did she realize that the voice didn't come from the box, but from the ordinary audience. First place. Who is it? Who offered such a high price? The Catwoman MC's beautiful eyes darted around, looking for the source of the voice. At this moment, her gaze was fixed on a small figure in the ordinary audience. It was a little girl of unknown race, about 14 or 15 years old, with a pair of ethereal and quick-witted eyes. That little girl was Nicole. At this moment, she stood up, raised her hand high like a child asking a teacher a question, and shouted the high price of 130 black crystal coins. Nicole, you're crazy, Shea said in astonishment. Do you have that many black crystal coins? Don't forget that you still have to pay us, Ron said with a frown. Of course I do. Nicole faintly smiled and made a face. Don't worry, for bringing me to that place, I will give you the reward you deserve. After saying that, her beautiful eyes looked towards the stage. Through the black floor-to-ceiling window, the second prince stared at Nicole. Who is this girl? She can't really be thinking of bidding for the mana recovery bracelet, right? The middle-aged man said hesitantly, I don't know her, but she doesn't look like she has that much money. I think there's an 80% chance that someone is toying with Azek. If that's the case, she's dead. Lehman Auction House won't let this go. The second prince slowly withdrew his gaze and said. He gently swirled the wine glass in his hand, glanced towards box number 1, and faintly smiled. Things are getting more and more interesting. Who is she? A little girl. Does she have that much money? Is this a joke about Lehman Auction House? The audience in the auction house quietly discussed. Their gazes would occasionally look towards the center, looking at Nicole's small figure, their eyes filled with curiosity. Why aren't you bidding? Is my money not money? Nicole shouted in dissatisfaction. When the crowd heard this, they took the opportunity to kick up a fuss. At this moment, the Catwoman MC came back to her senses and began shouting. 130 black crystal coins going once, 130 black crystal coins going twice. 130 black crystal coins going thrice, deal. As the hammer in the auctioneer's hand fell heavily, the transaction was over. In just a few seconds, the mana recovery bracelet had changed hands several times and ended up in the hands of an unknown 14-year-old girl sitting in the ordinary audience seat. This was the charm of an auction. The moment before the hammer fell, no one knew who the winner would be. Motherf asterisk cur, which bastard ruined my plans. Azek's mouth was wide open, and he didn't recover for a long time. By the time he reacted, the trade was already over. He was so angry that he almost jumped out of his chair, if only his fat body could jump out of it. Looks like she's here to set up a trap. A servant beside Azek said, Sir Azek, you can rest assured. I don't believe that she can take out so much money. If she had such strength, she wouldn't be sitting down there. When Azek heard this, he laughed. That's right. If she had such strength, she would be sitting in a private room. 130 black crystal coins isn't something a little girl can take out. Let's see how she'll deal with this after offending the Lehman Auction House. The servant laughed mischievously. Now we just have to watch the show. At this time, Ron saw the Catwoman MC walking towards them, escorted by a few burly guards. One of them was holding a wooden box. Hello, may I ask if you were the one who won the bid for the mana recovery bracelet? The Catwoman MC looked at Nicole with a trace of hesitation in her eyes and asked with a smile. Yes. Nicole replied with a smile. Hello, little girl, please pay 130 black crystal coins. The Catwoman MC said with a smile. Ron and Shea immediately became nervous. Did Nicole still have so many black crystal coins on her? Ron and Shea each had 100 black crystal coins. They had also spent more than 100 black crystal coins on the business street. If they were unable to pay after winning the bid, they could imagine what would happen to them. They were secretly worried for Nicole. Okay. Nicole faintly smiled. She reached into her interspatial ring and took out 130 black crystal coins and handed it to the Catwoman MC. Thank you, it now belongs to you. When the Catwoman MC saw Nicole pay the money, her tightly clenched hands relaxed and a smile appeared on her face. She smiled as she took the wooden box from the guard and handed it to Nicole. Nicole took the box and opened it. Immediately, a blue light spilled out, illuminating the surrounding space. It shone brightly. Wow, so beautiful! Nicole exclaimed in surprise. She picked up the mana recovery bracelet and fondly played with it. Can I see it? Ron couldn't help but ask. He was also attracted by the light. Of course. Nicole smiled as she handed the mana recovery bracelet to Ron. Ron took it and carefully examined it. The bracelet was very beautiful. When he held it in his hand, it had a heavy texture. The surface of the bracelet was emitting a light that resembled the sea, slowly flowing. What a beautiful bracelet! Ron played with it for a while before returning the bracelet to Nicole. He asked with a trace of curiosity, But you are a necromancer who cultivates the power of the soul. What's the use of buying this bracelet? It's beautiful. Nicole blinked her big eyes and put the bracelet on her hand with a smile. Don't you think this bracelet is beautiful? TSK, TSK, TSK. This design, this workmanship, it's definitely the work of Master Delaney. I've been wanting a bracelet like this for a long time. Beautiful. Ron and Shea were speechless. Nicole had spent 130 black crystal coins on a bracelet just to look beautiful? If other mages were to hear these words, they would probably be angered to death. She really paid for it? Seeing this scene, the second prince's eyes almost popped out of their socket. He looked left and right, but couldn't see anything extraordinary about this ordinary girl. It seems that I have to re-evaluate her. The second prince thought. Azahik was also shocked. His mood of watching a joke suddenly disappeared without a trace. Auction, 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 auction. What's important is the price. The feeling of having something in front of your eyes taken away was extremely unpleasant. Azahik's face instantly turned gloomy. Bastard! These two words jumped out of his fat mouth. The auction continued. Lehman Auction House took out a few more items for auction. However, their value couldn't compare to the mana recovery bracelet. They were just some relatively rare items that didn't have much significance to Ron and the others. Their prices were around 30 to 50 black crystal coins. The VIPs in the boxes didn't make a move. Perhaps they didn't care for these items. Since there was no competition or bidding, the next few items were all bought by the audience. At this time, the stage darkened once again. This meant that an extremely valuable item was about to appear. The first item was just to gather popularity. Now, the real highlight had arrived. Everyone held their breaths, their eyes fixed on the center of the stage. A cart was slowly pushed out. The tray on the cart was covered with a piece of red cloth. Under the red cloth, an irregular shape was wrapped. It was unknown what it was. At this time, the Catwoman MC's face revealed a rare dignified expression. Ladies and gentlemen, our Lehman Auction House will be displaying a special item. This item is extremely valuable. I hope that some guests without sufficient strength will not carelessly bid. Otherwise, we will hold some people accountable. In box number 9, the second prince faintly smiled. The real good item has come out. I just don't know what it will be. Looking at Lehman Auction House's panicked expression, I hope it won't be too bad. That's right, Your Highness the second prince. Those items just now were too inferior. I don't even want them. The middle-aged man next to the second prince shook his head and said, however, Your Highness the second prince must be careful of Azek in box number 1. He will definitely think of a way to stop Your Highness from doing as you wish. He dares? The second prince's eyes revealed a trace of resentment. Just now I was only giving him face. Although he is one of the first prince's people, in my eyes, he is just a dog. If he angers me, I will make him suffer. Sir Azek, the good item has come out. In box 1, a tall and thin attendant walked in front of Azek and bowed as he spoke. It has come out? Hearing this, Azek's eyes lit up. He reluctantly pulled his hand out of the plump and beautiful maid's bosom and said with a smile, This Lehman Auction House is too shameless. They only took out some trash to fool me. Now, they have finally revealed their trump card? Then let me take a good look at what it is. Azek said, As long as I like it, no one can snatch it from me. The red curtain was slowly pulled open, revealing the true appearance inside. Ron looked up and saw an unknown animal lying quietly on the dark red wooden plate. It looked like a cat, about the size of a calf, and its entire body was pitch black. It was not a living animal, but a corpse. What is this? Is it a cat? It can't be, right? Cat, Lehman Auction House is taking out a cat to auction? Could it be a strange beast? No, even if it is the corpse of a strange beast from the sacred domain, it is not worth much. Don't try to fool us. As soon as the curtain was pulled open, a buzzing sound came from the hall. Everyone looked at the Catwoman MC with eyes full of suspicion and distrust. Quiet, everyone, please quiet down and listen to my explanation. The Catwoman MC's pleasant voice shouted. Only then did everyone quiet down and listen to her explanation. Seeing everyone quiet down, the Catwoman MC let out a sigh of relief. She said in a clear voice, "Before that, I want to say that Lehman Auction House has never thought of fooling everyone. This strange beast's corpse has a great origin." She paused. After the appraisal of our Lehman Auction House's expert team, they unanimously agreed that the strange beast's corpse in front of us is the corpse of the legendary strange beast. What? The corpse of a strange beast? Did I hear wrongly? Really? The legendary strange beast is so easy to catch? I heard that strange beasts can teleport. Even a domain can't seal it. When the crowd heard this, they burst into an uproar and started discussing. At this time, the Catwoman MC continued, "Strange beasts are adept at teleportation. They are rare and extremely difficult to catch. Our Lehman Auction House only obtained one by chance a few months ago. This strange beast's corpse is extremely intact, and its essence core is still intact. It is quite rare. It is said that someone can comprehend the mysteries of space through the corpse of a strange beast and can directly teleport to another plane. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is a priceless treasure." Nicole listened quietly, her beautiful eyes staring at the small corpse on the shelf in the middle of the stage. She seemed to be in a daze, not even hearing Ron calling her a few times. However, after serious consideration, our Lehman Auction House has decided to auction it publicly. The starting price is 500 black crystal coins, and each increment is 10 black crystal coins. The auction starts now. What? So expensive? Why don't you just rob them? Yes, 500 black crystal coins. Even if a strange beast's corpse is rare, it isn't worth that much, right? Go to hell, Lehman Auction House. As soon as the Catwoman MC's voice fell, the people below the stage clamored. Your Highness Second Prince, what are our plans? In box number 9, the middle-aged man asked the second prince. No. The second prince shook his head and said bluntly, "Whether or not this is a real strange beast's corpse is another matter. Even if it is, it isn't worth that price. Comprehending the mysteries of space? If it were that easy, the Lehman Auction House would have kept it for their own use. They must have no use for the corpse, so they thought of selling it at such a price. Hee hee, 500 black crystal coins. The Lehman Auction House must be crazy for money. Your Highness Second Prince is indeed wise." The middle-aged man smiled faintly. "Then, we will not take this item." The second prince's thoughts represented the thoughts of many people. Some people who were originally tempted to make a move were frightened by the price of 500 black crystal coins. One after another, they retreated. This included Azek in box number 1. It wasn't that he couldn't afford it, but that it was useless. However, there were also some people who were attracted by the gimmick of the strange beast. According to legends, it was a mysterious creature that could travel through space and travel between planes. Some people were already prepared to make a bid. 510 black crystal coins. As soon as the Catwoman MC's voice fell, someone immediately made a bid. 510 black crystal coins. Is there a higher bid? 520 black crystal coins. 520 black crystal coins. Is there a higher bid? A fierce competition broke out in the hall. First, it was the audience sitting in the ordinary seat. Then, some of the boxes joined in the bidding. For example, box number 4 and box number 6. At this moment, the price of the strange beast's corpse had soared to 670 black crystal coins. When the price reached 680 black crystal coins, the frequency of the bidding gradually decreased. After all, 680 black crystal coins was not a small sum. Moreover, even if the corpse was real, it was still a question of whether it was worth the price. In the end, they would spend 680 black crystal coins only to buy a pile of garbage. 680 black crystal coins. Box number 4 offers 680 black crystal coins. Is there a higher bid? Yes. The Catwoman MC shouted loudly. According to the auction house, it was already beyond everyone's expectations that a useless corpse of a strange beast could be sold for such a price. Some people were just like that, only buying the most expensive item. If this strange beast's corpse was the same as an ordinary one, no one would make a bid at all. The mysteries of space were naturally a joke. If that was the case, wouldn't killing a Hydra make one an all-elemental mage? 680 black crystal coins going once, going twice, going thrice. The Catwoman MC shouted. At this moment, the auctioneer beside her slowly raised the hammer in his hand. It looked like it was about to come down. At this moment, another childish voice sounded. I bid 1,000 black crystal coins. Chapter 632. Silence. As soon as these words came out, the whole audience quieted down. The entire Lehman auction house was in complete silence. Everyone was shocked by the price. 1,000 black crystal coins? The Catwoman host was flabbergasted by the price. At that moment, she saw Nicole's small figure. Her again? The Catwoman host was shocked. However, she no longer dared to look down on this little girl. She had already been slightly shocked when she was auctioning off the magic-repelling bracelet. No one had thought that she would really take out 130 black crystal coins. It's her again. This little girl, said one. 1,000 black crystal coins. Heavens! What does her family do? How can they be so rich? Said another. Can she really take out 1,000 black crystal coins? Another person expressed his doubts. This isn't 1,000 stones. It's her again. The second prince in box number 9 also saw the dark horse Nicole and laughed. At that moment, he had an idea and said, Go! Bid 1,050 black crystal coins. 1,050 black crystal coins? The middle-aged man beside the second prince was stunned. Your Highness, didn't you say that you didn't want it? I don't want it, the second prince said with a smile. However, I believe that there will be people who don't want me to obtain this item. The middle-aged man was enlightened and laughed. Your Highness is indeed wise. Just as everyone was whispering to each other, a voice rang out from box 9. His Highness the second prince of the Stan Kingdom bids 1,050 black crystal coins. The one who bid was the middle-aged man. He had deliberately highlighted the second prince's identity. Someone else is bidding. These people are really rich, 1,050 black crystal coins and only a 50 increase. This second prince is too stingy. He can't compare to that little girl. She bid a few hundred. I wonder where that little girl came from. She actually has so much money. The Catwoman host became excited again. 1,050 black crystal coins. Box number 9 bids 1,050 black crystal coins. Are there any higher bids? In box number 1, Azek Sik had indeed been fooled. He originally didn't want to participate in the bidding for this alien space beast, but when he heard the second prince's bid, he immediately jumped up. 1,200 black crystal coins. 1,200 black crystal coins. Azahik directly added 150. He had already accepted the first prince's order to ruthlessly suppress the second prince's arrogance. 1,200 black crystal coins. 1,200 black crystal coins from box 1. Any higher bids? The Catwoman MC shouted. She knew that the show was about to begin when she saw that room 1 had also joined the fray. It would be a very exciting showdown. As expected, private room number 9 did not give up. Instead, he directly called out a price. 1,250 black crystal coins. 1,500 black crystal coins. Azek followed up without even thinking. 2,000 black crystal coins. Before the Catwoman MC could say anything, Nicole called out. She raised the price by 500, and the price of the alien beast's corpse had already risen to 2,000. Wow, 2,000 black crystal coins. Heavens, just how rich is she? Did you see that? This is called boldness. This is awesome. This competition is very interesting. In the Lehman auction house, everyone's eyes were focused on the 14 to 15-year-old girl beside Ron. This unknown little girl had brought them too many surprises. Shea and Ron looked at each other with faint worry in their eyes. The situation had already far exceeded their scope of control. It was impossible for them not to attract attention now. Ron sighed slightly. It seemed that Nicole's performance was too eye-catching. He was afraid that it would cause some trouble. Who, that hateful little bitch, actually foiling my plans? Azahik's eyes were fixed on Nicole, gnashing his teeth in anger. Lord Azahik, your limelight has been stolen by her, the attendant said with righteous indignation. My lord, please allow me to teach her a lesson and let her know who she is going against. Impossible! Azahik was so angry that his eyes turned red. He gnashed his teeth and said word by word, I am the richest man in the Stan Empire. How can I lose to an unknown little girl? Go, give me a bid of 2,200 black crystal coins, Azahik said in a roaring voice. There were some consequences that couldn't be ignored. 2,200 black crystal coins. Box 1 is bidding 2,200 black crystal coins. Is there anyone who wants to bid higher? The Catwoman MC's voice reverberated in the auction house's hall. Her eyes would occasionally glance at Box 9. Unfortunately, Box 9 was silent. They seemed to have been frightened by the terrifying price. The Catwoman host was a little disappointed that Room 9 didn't enter. 2,200 black crystal coins going once, 2,200 black crystal coins going once, 2,200 black crystal coins going twice, 3,000 black crystal coins. Nicole's voice sounded. At this moment, she had once again become the focus of attention. 3,500 black crystal coins. Azahik didn't give up and bid again. This was no longer an auction, but a battle of pride and pride. As the richest man in the Stan Empire, he couldn't afford to lose face like this. Otherwise, he would become a laughingstock if word got out. 4,000 black crystal coins. Nicole was not to be outdone. Every time she called out a price, it was a round number. 4,800 black crystal coins. Azahik shouted again. 5,000. Nicole shouted. Nicole's bid once again caused an uproar. The entire auction house was filled with gasps. 5,000 black crystal coins. The price has risen to 5,000 black crystal coins. Is the corpse of this extra-dimensional beast really worth that much money? They must be fighting. We will never understand the style of the rich. Who's in box 1? He seems to be very awesome. Someone who can take out 4,800 black crystal coins isn't simple. What? You don't even know who's in box 1? He's the richest man in the Stan Empire, Lord Azahik. Azahik? That mithril merchant? Yeah, I heard that he became the richest man in the Stan Empire by relying on His Highness the Crown Prince. Richest man, my ass. Even a little girl can't compare to him. This is simply a slap in the face in front of everyone. Richest man? He. The audience whispered to each other, and everyone's eyes kept glancing at the silent box 1, their eyes filled with ridicule and ridicule. It was as if Azahik's title as the richest man in the world didn't live up to its name. 5,000 black crystal coins. Azahik's body trembled. Azahik's body trembled. These 5,000 black crystal coins were nearly a year's worth of income from selling mithril. Mining mithril was extremely difficult. The investment was huge, and there were many unexpected situations. Sometimes, even if one found a mithril mine, they might not be able to mine it. In the end, it was common for them to work for nothing. Azahik understood that if he was defeated by this little girl, his reputation and prestige would take a huge hit. This kind of hit would not cause a direct factor, but would erupt through other channels. He had a feeling that if he called out a price of 5,000 black crystal coins, the little girl would not hesitate to call out a price of 6,000 black crystal coins. "My lord, you can't continue fighting like this." Seeing that Azahik was about to call out another price, his attendant hurriedly stopped him. He was also frightened by Nicole's powerful financial resources. "My lord, our budget is not enough. Don't forget, we still haven't completed the matter we promised His Highness the Crown Prince." The matter with His Highness the Crown Prince. Azahik was startled when he heard this. When he came back to his senses, he recalled that the Lehman auction house was about to display an item. The Crown Prince had repeatedly urged him to buy it. "All right, I'll endure this," Azahik pondered. He was indeed a ruthless person. He could endure being slapped in the face in public. He clenched his teeth and remained silent. 5,000 black crystal coins going once, going twice, going thrice, sold. The auctioneer raised the hammer in his hand, signaling the end of the auction. "Little whore, remember this, I won't let this matter rest," Azahik thought inwardly. He looked at Nicole with eyes filled with intense resentment. If looks could kill, Nicole would have died 1,000,000 times over. The Catwoman MC was beaming with joy. It had been a long time since the Lehman auction house had sold an item for such a high price. She was almost certain that her commission would not be small. Congratulations to Miss Nicole for successfully obtaining the alien beast's corpse. However, for your safety, I would like to ask Miss Nicole to move to a private room for the transaction. Such a large auction item could not be traded in public. It would be bad if it caused chaos. Nicole nodded, stood up, and left her seat under everyone's watchful eyes. Ron and Shea glanced at each other before following her. Nicole, Ron, and Shea were led by the Catwoman MC to a private room. The private room was very spacious. There was only one table. Several sacred domain experts were guarding the door. "Miss Nicole, please take out 5,000 black crystal coins," the Catwoman MC said politely. Nicole did not move. She was hesitating. As if she saw through Nicole's hesitation, the Catwoman MC said with a smile, "Please rest assured, Miss Nicole. The transaction here is absolutely safe." Nicole glanced at Ron and saw him nodding gently. Only then did she feel relieved. Nicole reached into her bosom and took out a small necklace from her underwear. She gently pressed a few buttons and the necklace emitted a flash of light. With a whoosh, the necklace suddenly opened, revealing the item inside. It turned out that there was a space inside the necklace. Nicole carefully took out a space ring from inside the necklace. She took out 5,000 black crystal coins and placed them on the table one by one. So many black crystal coins! Ron and Shea's eyes were wide open. 5,000 black crystal coins were placed on the table like trash. This was definitely a spectacle rarely seen in 1,000 years. Back then, Ron had only absorbed 6 black crystal coins to become a sacred domain expert. If he could absorb 5,000 black crystal coins, what level would his strength reach? Ron glanced at Nicole and sucked in a breath of cold air. This question kept circling in his mind. Who the hell is this girl? The Catwoman MC had a solemn expression. She and a few assistants carefully counted the items on the table. Then, they handed the alien beast's corpse to Nicole. Nicole casually put it into her space ring. "Hey, look, that girl is coming out! Is it true? That girl took out 5,000 black crystal coins? Lehman Auction House didn't make things difficult for her. It seems that the transaction has been completed." The Catwoman MC respectfully led the way in front. However, she did not bring Nicole and the others back to their original seat. Instead, she led them directly to Box 10. Nicole and the other two sat down on a spacious sofa. Not long after, a maid served beautiful desserts. Congratulations to the three of you for becoming Lehman Auction House's VIPs. You can come in directly from the VIP passage. Lehman Auction House is ready to serve you at any time, said the Catwoman MC as she handed 3 VIP cards to the three. Ron and Shea took a look at the cards. The VIP cards were very beautiful, but they were of no use to them. After all, they were going to leave the city soon and might not have the opportunity to return. Ron casually threw the VIP cards into his space ring. The Catwoman MC politely bid farewell to the three. Before she left, she even gave Ron a coquettish look, making Ron speechless. It couldn't be helped. After all, he was the only man among the three of them. After bidding farewell to Ron and the other two, the Catwoman MC hurriedly returned to the stage. Now, the last auction item. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.